Chapter 388. Every dog had its day, and the 12 Golden Core cultivators, led by xianxia, were taken aback by this series of changes. With the blessing of more than 40 support spells, all kinds of light and runes lingered around Loopy Toad to form an unbreakable circle of 3 feet. The torrent of aura was like a vortex with Loopy Toad at its center as it spun around. A total of 49 buff spells. This power was incomparable to before. For a full 5 minutes, Loopy Toad stood there and quietly looked around at everyone. There was finally a trace of fear in xianxia's eyes. The duration of a support spell would weaken over time, and usually it would only last for 2 minutes, but this was under the situation where the spell's level was relatively low. Based on xianxia's current experience, a support spell that lasted more than 5 minutes was already very long. However, the effects of the spells on Loopy Toad hadn't weakened in the slightest during these 5 minutes. This was already proof that these support spells were of very high levels, and were most likely at the highest level. The point was that Loopy Toad was able to cultivate each support spell to the highest level. xianxia began to realize that he might have provoked a great senior with a question mark. Who on earth is your master? Because of the suppression of the aura, xianxia's tone had long since lost its initial arrogance. Under the absolute suppression of this aura, they found it very difficult to even breathe. The 12 Golden Core cultivators of the Demon Hunters Association had actually been suppressed by a dog that hadn't even reached 2nd class. If word got out, they would definitely become a laughingstock. But xianxia couldn't care less now. The only way to win was to think of a way to drag out the duration of these support spells or avoid fighting as much as possible. Everyone, transfer all the spiritual energy in your body to my mystery umbrella. Let's fight together. Standing at the front, xianxia raised his hand, and a giant umbrella actually appeared in it. The 12 Golden Core cultivators worked together, and spirit light burst forth from the umbrella, forming a solid light film. But very quickly this light directly disappeared. What's going on? Xianxia was aghast to find that a layer of frost had actually formed on the surface of his umbrella. This was the aura freezing spell? Weiji couldn't help but narrow his eyes when he saw this. This was a fairly high-level demon technique. That was because the last 2 times the gate between worlds had descended, in order to deal with the demon beasts pouring out of the gate between worlds, the major pet trainers guilds had conducted an in-depth analysis of the spells commonly used by the demon race. The aura freezing technique was one of the commonly used techniques of the demon race. It could release a special kind of chi to offset the spiritual waves or sharpness produced by the magic tool, and it could even make the magic tool temporarily lose its effect. Back then, demon god Dear Demon Li Xiaolu had used this top-notch aura freezing spell to make General Yi and the others suffer a great loss on the battlefield. Weiji was not clear about the specific history. He only had a rough idea. At that time, Li Xiaolu had indeed shocked everyone with this aura freezing technique of the demon race. The first battle of the first round was against the enemy human sect, Hipha sect, a sky-class sect. It had completely wiped out the Hiha sect's top-notch rhythm cultivators. It was said that even the air had been frozen. And after this first battle, Li Xiaolu also successfully received a great title, King of Flat Laughter. Weiji was now becoming more and more interested in Loopy Toad. It was clearly just an Akita that wasn't a spirit dog at all, but it had enormous spirit power hidden in its body. And it was this special spirit dog that could actually use the demon race's spells. Weiji felt that he could already roughly guess Loopy Toad's exact situation. It had only been a few seconds since he had taken out the mystery umbrella, but it had actually instantly lost its effectiveness. This caused xianxia's expression to change drastically. He was so scared that he took a few steps back. At this moment he could see that not only was the dog's owner very powerful, but the dog's identity was also not as simple as he had imagined. You can't even get close to me at your current realms and you still want to join forces to fight me? Loopy Toad raised its head and sneered. In the next moment, Weiji saw a brilliant light emerge from Loopy Toad's body and envelop him. Was it afraid of affecting him? Was it going to use its ultimate move? Weiji watched this scene with rapt attention. I can't move. On the other side, xianxia blurted out. To his horror, he realized that the special aura that had frozen the mystery umbrella had directly followed the magic weapon to their bodies and froze them as well. This definitely wasn't the strength of a normal 3rd-class spirit dog. Even if it had been strengthened, it was extremely difficult for even a 2nd-class spirit beast to achieve this level of strength. All sorts of thoughts swirled in xianxia's mind. You shouldn't have provoked me. Loopy Toad swept a lazy glance over these people. In the next moment, a green aura was released, and like countless large hands, it shot toward the top of these golden core cultivators' heads at the same time. They couldn't dodge it at all, let alone resist it. The moment this aura shot into the top of his head, xianxia immediately felt like he was going to collapse. Was this a weakening spell? No, it didn't seem that simple. Roughly 10 seconds later, 12 golden core cultivators crashed to the ground at the same time. Butcher Uncle xianxia, who was their leader, stretched out his hands miserably. "Senior dog, spare me. I was wrong." Loopy Toad was very unperturbed and completely ignored the screams. After a full minute, the invisible aura hand that had connected the 12 golden core cultivators to the top of their heads was finally pulled away. These golden core cultivators weren't dead, but their auras were extremely weak. The most important thing was that their faces were very unsightly, as if their essence had been stolen. Looking at the tragic scene in the wooden hut, Weiji felt like his brain was a little numb and his mouth was dry as he asked this question. "Brother Dog, can you explain to me what on earth happened just now?" Although Weiji had analyzed the scene and thought of several possible spells, he didn't dare be 100% sure about what had just happened. In short, this definitely wasn't a weakening spell. If it had been a simple weakening spell, these 12 golden core cultivators definitely wouldn't have such dispirited expressions on their faces, as if they had been toyed with. Loopy Toad narrowed its eyes and smiled coldly. "I took 50 years of lifespan from each of them." "The hell? Life extension." Weiji was stunned by this operation. Chapter 389. The 12 golden core cultivators in the wooden house were part of the core members of the Demon Hunters Association in the backstreet. But at this stage, the Demon Hunters Association still hadn't been fundamentally resolved, because the organization's leader had yet to be caught. Weiji and Loopy Toad's original plan had been to wipe out all the core members of the organization in one fell swoop, but they had overlooked how cunning this group of pet dealers was. Furthermore, the violent sounds of the battle in the wooden house, as well as the screams of the Demon Hunters Association core members as they fell to the ground, had already attracted the attention of a lot of people in the backstreet. Sensing that the situation wasn't good, some of the pet dealers were already planning to pack up and run, but unfortunately, Weiji had already made full preparations. Loopy Toad looked out the broken window. Even in the backstreet, it could already hear the loud sound of police sirens outside. Weiji had called the police earlier, and this seemingly peaceful town had already been heavily surrounded by the police. A lot of SWAT officers had already penetrated the backstreet with explosion-proof magic shields. This was probably the biggest case of spirit beast trafficking this year. Although the organization's leader hadn't been caught and some of its core members were still on the run, Loopy Toad felt that they wouldn't be able to run for long. But Loopy Toad was now facing a new problem, and that was how to get out of here. There were a lot of people and eyes in this situation, and its fur was too conspicuous. If the SWAT officers penetrating the back street found the wooden house and saw the 12 golden core cultivators on the ground, Loopy Toad reckoned that it would be in the headlines tomorrow. Just as it was thinking about how to leave, Loopy Toad suddenly smelled a familiar aura in the crowd. Roughly 2 or 3 minutes later, Loopy Toad saw a familiar figure. Audiobook had arrived. As usual, Audiobook was still dressed in a 3-piece suit with swept-back hair, the standard attire of a society elite. "Is this your friend?" When Weiji saw Audiobook, his gaze also shook. He felt that this person was a little familiar, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. But when he saw the logo of the General Administration of 100 Schools on Audiobook's chest, Weiji instantly remembered. Wasn't this the leader who had been in the limelight recently? The youngest General Administration of 100 Schools in history. The person who had shot to fame back then when he had killed a Demon King remotely. Speaking of which, Weiji felt that this person was a little strange. It seemed that he had been involved in every major incident recently. It was really too strange. When Audiobook arrived, he was carrying a travel bag on his back, which had clearly been specially prepared for Loopy Toad. "Shifu asked me to pick you up." As soon as he entered the wooden hut, Audiobook straightaway opened his travel bag. With just one simple sentence, Loopy Toad understood why he was here. One person and one dog had a tacit understanding. Loopy Toad didn't stand on ceremony with Audiobook, and it directly dove into the travel bag. It sensed that someone else's aura was approaching. If someone else saw this scene, it would be very troublesome. Weiji, who was watching from the side, had a puzzled expression on his face. This master should be referring to Brother Dog's master, right? However, Weiji was truly curious about the identity of this master. To be able to become the Shifu of Audiobook, the currently popular director of the 100 Schools Alliance, and to have such a strange dog under him. Weiji couldn't help but wonder about the power of this great senior behind the scenes. After all, an average person couldn't learn how to use more than 40 full-level support spells in a row. After putting Loopy Toad into the travel bag, Audiobookslover finally breathed a sigh of relief. Putting the bag on his back, he stepped forward and took the initiative to shake hands with Wei Ji with a smile on his face. You must be Comrade Wei Ji who reported the illegal spirit beast trade this time. As soon as they shook hands, Wei Ji could already see a large number of reporters swarming in from behind. As soon as they entered the house, they started to take pictures, cameras flashing and clicking. It wasn't just Wei Ji, even Loopy Toad in the travel bag was startled by this scene. Luckily Audiobookslover had arrived early. That's right. I was the one who reported it. Since he couldn't hide in the bag like Loopy Toad, he could only answer in this manner. The reporters then captured the scene of them shaking hands for more than 10 seconds. After that, a female reporter from the Cultivation Daily asked, Director Audiobookslover, how do you manage to rush to the scene of every major incident as soon as it happens and take part in directing it? The spirit beast trafficking incident this time doesn't seem to be under the jurisdiction of the General Administration of 100 schools. Does Director Audiobookslover think this action crossed the line? Audiobookslover frowned and stared at the female reporter with a serious expression on his face. Comrade, you're wrong. No matter when or where, as long as the people need me, I should be there. At the back, the reporters started to take notes when they heard Audiobookslover's words. The female reporter who had asked the question sighed in her heart. This wasn't the first time she had dealt with Audiobookslover. She actually felt that she was already running fast enough in order to bring him the latest news as soon as possible. But she hadn't expected Audiobookslover to beat her to every major incident this year. The leader of the General Administration of 100 schools this time was too diligent. Then, can I ask Director Audiobookslover to explain the latest situation? The female reporter asked again. Audiobookslover cleared his throat and faced the cameras and the incessant flashes. This is the biggest case of illegal spirit beast trafficking since we received a report this year. According to our investigation, this organization is called the Demon Hunters Association, and there are still some suspects on the run. Specific information will be announced in the news later. I believe that with the police's hard work, we'll be able to solve this case very soon. After all, justice has long arms. Director Zhua, who was the one who defeated these suspects lying on the ground? Audiobookslover instantly quivered at this question, and he hurriedly stepped forward to shake Wei Ji's hand again. If you want to thank someone, thank this little brother who reported this. These people were all defeated by him. When I arrived, they were already down. Wei Ji almost spat blood when he heard this. This was a living example of shoving the blame and lying with his eyes closed. Furthermore, judging from the injuries caused by the 12 suspects after fighting with the informant, they looked haggard and gloomy, as if they were completely exhausted. I suspect. Speaking up to this point, Audiobookslover looked at Wei Ji. This little brother used the legendary great art of sexual attraction. Wei Ji. Great art of sexual attraction? When the reporters in the back heard this, they were all horrified. Chapter 390. The night the Demon Hunters Association was exposed, the news had already spread like wildfire before the media had a chance to announce it. That night, Wang Ling opened the cultivation forum and found that the number of new posts had already exceeded 10,000, and almost all of them revolved around the Demon Hunters Association. Some of the posts even had pictures taken at the scene. After their spirit beast contracts had been forcibly cancelled, the poor spirit beasts lay motionless in their cages, covered in wounds and bloodstains. The crisscrossing wounds were a ghastly sight to behold. There were also some low-grade spirit beasts whose skins and fur had been skinned alive to be made into Taoist robes and boots. The most important thing was that almost all the spirit beasts traded in the Demon Hunters Association originally had owners. If there was no trade, there would be no killing. No one thought that the Demon Hunters Association would actually be so bold as to continue committing crimes in the face of the country's strict ban on the poaching and trafficking of spirit beasts. For all the cultivators who had been paying attention to this matter and who had called for people to live in harmony with spirit beasts, this incident had in fact been a huge psychological blow. The pressure of public anger would ultimately be passed on to the task force in charge of the Demon Hunters Association case, as well as Audiobookslover, the commander. It had to be said that although the Demon Hunters Association had already been exposed, the people they had arrested were pet dealers and small fry who were involved in the trafficking of spirit beasts. Not all the core members had been arrested, and they didn't even know who the head of the organization was. Of all the core members arrested, xuanhuan had the highest rank. According to his own confession, he had never seen the face of the head of the Demon Hunters Association, and only knew that the other party's surname was Bai. Everyone in the organization called him President Bai. Every time President Bai appeared, he was accompanied by rolling fog and water vapor. It wasn't just his face, even his figure couldn't be seen. In prison, Warden Liang had a special magic treasure which could be used to detect lies. As it turned out, everything was indeed as Zhuangzhou had said. The identity of the head behind the Demon Hunters Association was a mystery. When Loopy Toad returned home that night, it accompanied Wang Ling to read all kinds of posts online, and it was Zhua who had texted Wang Ling the results of the interrogation. Wang Ling realized that Loopy Toad seemed to be particularly concerned about this matter. Although it had once been a demon king, when all was said and done, a demon king was also a demon beast. In essence, demon beasts and spirit beasts came from the same root. The only difference was the medium through which they used their power. Thus, Loopy Toad's heart was particularly moved when it saw these pictures on the forum. It couldn't imagine what would happen if it was caught one day and suffered this kind of treatment. Of course, with Wang Ling by its side, this would never happen. But Loopy Toad was already clear about its attitude toward the Demon Hunters Association. It would definitely ferret out the mastermind behind the scenes. Wang Ling rubbed its head. Then he found out that this guy was actually lying on the table looking through the forum post with him and falling asleep. Loopy Toad's NAR. Fortunately, the outbreak happened at home. If it happened during the battle just now, the consequences would be unimaginable. He had to think of a way to solve this problem quickly. Wang Ling cupped his chin in his hand and pondered for a bit. Then he picked up the dog that was stuck to the table and put it next to his leg. After calling grenade-throwing Senior Immortal last time to ask Little Silver to buy Holy Beast blood, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had also bought Little Silver a phone and applied for a new number. After calling Little Silver last time to buy Holy Beast blood, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had also bought Little Silver a phone and applied for a new number. So this time Wang Ling contacted Little Silver directly. When will it be delivered? The text message was as simple as ever, consisting of only 7 words. Sitting on the sofa at grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's house, Little Silver was so scared that he almost dropped his phone when he saw the message. To be honest, Little Silver had actually been quite hurt when he had failed to release the blood earlier. Not only had he failed, the point was that he had been treated as a depressed suicidal teenager, and had been arrested by the police for ideological work. After that, he had been treated as a mental patient and sent to the hospital. Little Silver had initially wanted to wait a few days. Although Holy Beasts had a strong ability to recover, this wasn't how they were supposed to be used. Little Silver stared at the phone screen, bewildered. He didn't dare directly refuse Wang Ling. How about, I pretend I didn't see it? Little Silver's hands were trembling. In this kind of situation, ignoring was usually the best way to avoid embarrassment. It was like when you were playing a game. If your girlfriend came looking for you, you absolutely couldn't answer that you were playing a game. Ignoring was the best choice. It was better to wait until the time was right to reply. At this thought, Little Silver suddenly raised his head. This should be the legendary rule by doing nothing, right? Right. It had to be. Little Silver nodded his head with certainty, and then simply steeled his heart and directly turned off the phone. He actually ignored Master. For some reason, Little Silver felt that he was especially handsome at that moment. Sometimes you had to be so domineering. Learn to resist. Learn to say no. Even if the other party was a big shot, you absolutely couldn't bow your head to one. This was the dignity a holy beast should have. On the other side, Wang Ling could see Little Silver's conflicted image on the sofa through the phone screen. He could even clearly see him turning off the phone. As long as Wang Ling wanted, he could activate the heavenly eye to connect his optic nerves to various screens. This was a new modern spell that he had independently developed. It was just like how he could control his nose hair to form a filter in his nose to prevent PM2.5. Through the heavenly eye, Wang Ling connected to Little Silver's phone screen and saw his actions. Wang Ling took a deep breath. He had actually been ignored just like that, but Wang Ling wasn't angry at all. After all, he had indeed asked for a lot of blood, but this was a very good deal for Little Silver. The 20 packets of crispy noodle snacks he had used to buy the blood were from his collection. After eating them, there would be unexpected benefits. Thus, Wang Ling grabbed his phone and sent another text message. Then, on the other side, Little Silver was stunned to find that his phone had actually turned on by itself. What was going on? This phone could even turn on by itself? Then Little Silver saw Wang Ling's 4 question marks. Little Silver. Before he could turn his phone off again, Wang Ling sent another text message. Give up, it's no use. Little Silver. Wang Ling, I can turn it on for you remotely. Little Silver. Wang Ling, I know you're looking. Then after a few seconds, Wang Ling didn't send a single word, and just sent a kitchen knife emoji. The meaning was very obvious. If you don't come, I'll go get it myself. Little Silver was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat, and he replied to Wang Ling in a fluster. Tomorrow, is that okay? Wang Ling replied, okay. Before Little Silver could completely calm down, Wang Ling's second reply came. No money if you're late. Chapter 391. Taming and training a holy beast was actually a very long process. It was like a small game for raising children. Some time ago, Wang Ling had discovered a romance management game that had become very popular among the girls at school. The girls jokingly called it Raising Men, because one wrong step and the final outcome would be a tragedy. However, for Wang Ling, raising a holy beast on the level of a loyal dog was far simpler than raising 4 men in the phone for the girls in class. It was July 8th on Saturday in the 11th week of the semester. That morning, a young man with long silver hair appeared at the entrance of the Wang family's small villa. He wore a white shirt and a pair of skin-tight ripped jeans. Based on the set of clothes that grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had given him the last time, Little Silver had gone to the mall to buy a matching version. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had initially wanted to tag along, but after the Demon Hunters Association incident had come to light, the number of posts on the cultivation forum had skyrocketed last night. In the end, the backend had directly crashed and the server had crashed. He was now sorting out the data to maintain the server. Little Silver still remembered that before he had left, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had issued an official apology. Sorry, due to technical reasons the server has crashed. Technicians are currently doing their best to investigate. After the maintenance is over, any friends whose posts have disappeared will be compensated with a broccoli. Thank you for your cooperation. This should be the place, right? Little Silver looked at the location that grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had sent him. The Wang family's small villa was actually quite remote and wasn't easy to find, especially on the way here, which had been a bit of a detour. But when he arrived at the entrance of the Wang family's small villa, Little Silver's expression turned a lot more serious. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had always regarded this villa as a holy land, for no other reason than that according to him, there was an old senior who lived in seclusion behind the scenes who was even more terrifying than Ling Jinren. At that moment, Little Silver's heart suddenly raced as he stood at the entrance of the villa, and he was a little nervous. On one hand, he had been frightened, and on the other hand, he was still a little weak after losing 2,000 milliliters of blood last night. An old senior who was even more terrifying than Master. What kind of existence was this? Little Silver couldn't imagine it at all. All of a sudden, Little Silver felt a deep sense of powerlessness in his heart. When he was young, he had dared to directly break into a sect of 10,000 people, going in and out 7 times. But now he had to summon up the courage to even ring the doorbell. The world had really changed. Why are there so many freaks among the human cultivators? While he was hesitating, Little Silver saw the villa door suddenly open. She was still holding a plate of leftovers in her hand, and she crouched down to put it on the edge of the door. Although the edge of the small villa was a little remote and desolate, there were still stray cats. Every time Mother Wang would leave the leftovers at home to feed them. As soon as he opened the door, he saw a silver-haired youth with a face as pale as a foreigner standing at the door. Mother Wang stared blankly at Little Silver. This fair-faced girl, who are you looking for? Little Silver. Mother Wang then looked Little Silver up and down carefully, then smiled knowingly. You're here for Ling Ling, aren't you? Little Silver nodded. To be honest, it wasn't that Little Silver couldn't understand why Mother Wang had mistaken his gender. His human form was in fact more androgynous to begin with. Coupled with his long silver hair, it was very easy for people to misunderstand him. Just as he was wondering whether he should explain, Mother Wang suddenly stepped forward and grabbed his hand. There's no need to say anything, miss. And he understands. Little Silver. Then Mother Wang directly led him through the door with a radiant smile on her face. He had actually entered the holy land that grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had mentioned? When Mother Wang pulled him through the door, Little Silver was a little dazed. He had never expected the senior in the villa to be so easygoing. But why were the fluctuations of spirit energy on this senior's body so weak? It had to be hidden. It had to be. Mother Wang led Little Silver to the sofa in the living room, then poured him a cup of tea with a smile on her face. Miss, what's your surname? Little Silver sighed in his heart and replied, My name is Little Silver. He already didn't intend to explain. In this case it would be even more awkward. It was fine as long as the senior was happy. Mother Wang looked him up and down again. This girl's figure was pretty good, although some parts were indeed a little small. But this still couldn't dampen Mother Wang's enthusiasm. Most of the people who visited the villa before were Ling Ling's boyfriends. Little Silver. Mother Wang, Miss Little Silver, don't misunderstand, I'm talking about male friends, Little Silver. Mother Wang grabbed Little Silver's hand excitedly. Today a girl finally came. Little Silver, Senior Mother Wang, don't call me senior, call me auntie. Little Silver was startled. Can I? To Little Silver's knowledge, this was probably a very intimate form of address. This was a holy land. All the great seniors inside were question marks. Nowadays, where could one find such a strong auntie? Why not, it's just a form of address. Mother Wang couldn't help laughing. By the way, where does Miss Little Silver live? Our clan is more used to living in caves. Usually we sleep standing up. No wonder you have such a good figure, it turns out you always stand up. Mother Wang couldn't help exclaiming in admiration. Mother Wang didn't find it strange that Little Silver lived in caves. Nowadays there were people who liked this sort of thing. The richer a family was, the more they liked this kind of exploration experience. Furthermore, there were a lot of stories on TV nowadays about rich people specifically going deep into the mountains and forests to dig caves and transform them into mansions. This proved that this girl's family might be pretty well off. It also showed why this girl's skin was so fair. Mother Wang felt that this fair-faced girl had clearly benefited from the influence of nature. If Miss Little Silver doesn't mind, how about staying for lunch? Mother Wang smiled. Isn't that too much trouble? It's fine, just make yourself at home. Mother Wang stood up happily. I'll go prepare the ingredients. If you're looking for Ling Ling, he's on the second floor, the first room on the left. Auntie, where are the other seniors? They've all gone out, it's just the three of us at home this afternoon, said Mother Wang. Oh, okay, Auntie, then I'll go up first. After saying that, Little Silver hurried upstairs. He hadn't expected at all that he would actually be asked to stay for lunch. Mother Wang watched Little Silver's back as he went upstairs with a kind smile on her face. From their conversation just now, she was very satisfied with this fair-faced girl. Although some parts were a little small, but when Little Silver had gone upstairs just now, Mother Wang had noticed that this fair-faced girl's butt was pretty big. Big and perky. What was the saying? A big butt is good for giving birth. Chapter 392. At that moment, Little Silver was sitting cross-legged on the floor of the room, looking very nervous. At that moment, Wang Ling was still reviewing his homework, and no one was to disturb him. Although Little Silver had been invited in, he was under the strict supervision of his two muscular brothers, Pen and Eraser. The transformed gremlins were actually different from humans and spirit beasts. There was a special fluctuation in their bodies, which was very difficult for ordinary cultivators to perceive. But as a holy beast, Little Silver's six senses were sharp, and he immediately knew that the two brothers sitting cross-legged behind him staring at him weren't ordinary people. Apart from this, the rest of Little Silver's attention was on Loopy Toad, who was sleeping soundly at Wang Ling's feet. He sensed that the fluctuations of spirit energy coming from this green-furred Akita weren't ordinary. All in all, after Little Silver came to Wang Ling's room and looked around, he realized that Wang Ling wasn't the only one in the room. He suddenly realized that there was not a single normal person in the room. Little Silver felt that some people might be a little ambiguous when he said this. Was Ling Jinren not a person? Of course not. So strong. So handsome. This was clearly a god. Little Silver looked at the time. About 5 minutes after he had entered the room, Wang Ling had finished studying and closed the book. Then she turned her chair and looked at him. Did you bring it? As usual, Wang Ling asked telepathically. As usual, his voice was a little cold, but surprisingly Little Silver thought it was a little pleasant. Little Silver waved his hand, and a red crystal appeared in his palm. This is 4,000 milliliters of holy beast blood, all of which has been condensed into a blood crystal. When Senior Ling wants to use it, just soak it in an equal amount of water. Holding this blood crystal, Wang Ling could already feel the vigorous power of the holy beast's blood. As Little Silver had said, the blood crystal already contained 4,000 milliliters of holy beast blood. After confirming it, he went to the bathroom and filled a wooden basin with water. Using his heavenly eye, he calculated that it was exactly 4,000 milliliters. Not a single drop was left, not a single drop was missing. Then Little Silver saw Wang Ling throw the blood crystal in. Where is Senior Ling? Little Silver was startled. Do you see that chubby green-haired Akita? This is Master's pet called Loopy Toad. The pen said, now let's give it a bath. Taking a bath? Soaking in the blood of a saint beast. The corners of Little Silver's mouth couldn't help twitching. This was too extravagant. To think that he had worked tirelessly yesterday to get so much blood, but in the end, it was used to bathe. For some reason Little Silver's liver suddenly hurt. Before Little Silver could understand Wang Ling's specific intentions, he saw Wang Ling stretch out his hand and pull at the air, and the green-furred Akita, who had been sleeping like a dog on the ground, instantly floated up. Then he crooked his finger. Little Silver heard a plop, as the dog was actually directly thrown into the wooden bucket. On the side, Pen explained, Master's pet has severe narcolepsy due to certain reasons. Once he fell asleep, he would be unconscious. In order to completely solve this symptom, his lord was using the ancient method to treat it. The most important aspect of this ancient technique was the blood of the sacred beast. According to the ancient records, the blood of a sacred beast has a miraculous effect in treating this kind of narcolepsy. Ancient method? Little Silver was slightly startled. As he pondered this, he habitually stuck his hand into his mouth and gnawed on it. This was a bad habit he had developed after transforming into his human form. He would gnaw on his hand at the slightest disagreement. In his beast form, he didn't have this thought at all because he couldn't bite the hoof at all. As far as I can remember, there are very few ancient medical techniques that have detailed records of the use of the blood of a sacred beast. Do you know Immortal Dr. Xuanhuan? The Pen explained, this ancient technique comes from the ancient medical books that he left behind. Other than the immortal physician's ancient books, Master also has the medical saint, medical devil, medical king, medical emperor, and medical horse. Hearing this, Little Silver's eyes instantly lit up with curiosity. But what on earth does Senior Ling want to do? As a genuine holy beast, no one here knew the characteristics of the blood of a sacred beast better than Little Silver. He had no idea whether the blood could cure narcolepsy. But he was well aware that simply soaking in the blood of a sacred beast wouldn't work at all. While Little Silver was engaged in an academic discussion with Pen, he noticed that Wang Ling had started to do something new. After soaking the whole dog in a wooden barrel filled with the blood of a sacred beast, Wang Ling quickly took out a spirit herb that at first glance looked very much like green onions. The instant he took out the spirit herb, Little Silver instantly sensed a surge of rich spirit chi. The spirit power contained in this bunch of green onions was very frightening. Wang Ling broke down the spirit herb and scattered it into the wooden barrel like chopped green onions. Little Silver was dumbfounded, because this was a spirit herb he had never seen before. What is this spirit herb that looks like green onions? Pen, correction, this bunch of spirit herbs that looks like green onions are actually green onions. Little Silver, the spirit power of this green onions was overflowing. This wasn't a proper green onions at all. Pen, the difference is that his lord personally raised these green onions. The effect is extraordinary. Little Silver, after completing the first step of soaking the dog in the wooden barrel and the second step of scattering the green onions, Wang Ling's third step was to actually find a lid and cover the entire wooden barrel. After doing this, Wang Ling crossed his arms and waited on the side. All he had to do now was wait. Little Silver didn't quite understand. Excuse me, what is this step? Pen answered truthfully, this wooden barrel looks very ordinary, but his lord personally enchanted it. After covering it with a lid, it has the ability to heat up. Now we just need to wait for it to heat up. Little Silver somehow felt that there was something wrong with this method. Wait a minute. Soaking the dog in the holy beast blood, sprinkling chopped green onions, covering it with a lid, heating it up, these actions seemed a little familiar. Seeing the silver-haired young man's shocked expression, Pen explained solemnly, what you're seeing now is the instant noodles therapy recorded in an ancient book by Immortal Dr. Xuanhuan. His lord has already perfectly restored it according to Immortal Dr. Xuanhuan's ancient book. Little Silver. This was the first time he had heard that holy beast blood could be used like this. What F*** King Instant Noodles Therapy. 2nd Battalion Commander was already very tired from holding the noodles. Moving the orange tree back and forth every day was also very tired. Mr. Chindushio was already very tired from giving out the awards every day. His arms were really sore from pulling out the 40-meter-long broadsword. Even Dihua Shio's hand sanitizer had gone up in price. The paint on the trophy had been erased. Chapter 393. Will there really be no problem? Won't there be a lack of oxygen? Little Silver looked doubtfully at the wooden barrel in front of him. It won't be a problem. Pen shook its head and said, before my lord threw it in, he sealed its acupoints and unblocked the meridians through which spirit energy circulates, so that it can circulate continuously in the body. Little Silver nodded. I see. He had only seen Wang Ling throw Loopy Toad into the wooden barrel earlier, and had no idea that Wang Ling had done so much. Because spirit energy itself contained oxygen, this method of spirit energy internal circulation through the meridians was actually quite common, and was comparable to the advanced version of the turtle breathing spell. It lasted longer than the turtle breathing spell. Under normal circumstances, after performing this spiritual power internal circulation method, one could maintain it for 7 to 10 days without breathing at all. The higher one's realm was, the longer they would be able to maintain it. Will this really work? Little Silver stuck his head out, really very curious about whether it would really work. After all, life nowadays was full of folk prescriptions for psoriasis handed down by old Chinese medicine doctors everywhere. Who knew whether these prescriptions were real or fake? Little Silver raised his eyebrows. How long will it take? Pen, heat and simmer for 8 hours. Little Silver felt that something wasn't right. When Wang Ling had thrown it into the wooden barrel, Loopy Toad's acupoints had been sealed at the same time, and the spirit energy internal circulation had begun. Warm holy beast blood permeated its entire body, which was a very strange feeling for Loopy Toad. It was a little like being held down by a ghost. When you were asleep, your mind was clearly very clear, but your body was still in a deep sleep and you couldn't even open your eyes. This was a classic case of narcolepsy. But very quickly Loopy Toad noticed that something wasn't right, and the scene in its mind abruptly changed. Soon after, it fell onto an island. Loopy Toad raised its paw to feel the sand on the beach as the cool sea breeze blew through its green dog fur. These grains of sand were actually real. What was going on? Wasn't it being treated? Loopy Toad calmed down and thought for a bit. Given the current situation, Loopy Toad could only speculate that its soul had been brought to this space by some mysterious force. But who on earth had done this? While it was thinking, Loopy Toad saw an old man in white appear in a coconut grove up ahead. Loopy Toad was instantly on guard. This old man was not ordinary. His aura was restrained, and his clothes fluttered even though there was no wind. Spiritual energy swirled 5 feet around him, forming an invisible barrier. This aura. This old man was at least a true immortal's realm. Loopy Toad watched as the old man walked toward it step by step, doing his best to suppress his aura for fear that it would scare Loopy Toad as he approached it slowly. Brother dog, don't be afraid. This old man won't have it. Loopy Toad stared at the old man in front of it and kept its distance. Senior, who are you? My name is Pang and my name is Guang. The coconut old man put his hand to his mouth and replied in a soft voice. His voice was so soft that it almost melted into the sea breeze. Loopy of him. Loopy, go of Loopy of Zhang of. In the end, this senior Pang fell to his knees on the ground and sighed deeply. It's because your master is too strong. Loopy Toad was instantly enlightened. It turned out that this guy had been frightened by little Master Ling. He was traumatized. No wonder. Loopy Toad, you've met my master? Yes. I've seen him twice. Speaking up to this point, Taoist Guang Pang Guang was already sobbing faintly. This old man set up this space with my own hands. In the end, your master comes and goes as he pleases, as if he's playing. Really, he doesn't give me any face at all. Lying on the ground, Taoist Guang stuck out his butt and pounded the ground like crazy. As he did so, he cried and complained without the demeanor of a true immortal at all. Loopy Toad was silent at this scene. It looked like this wasn't a small blow. It had to calm down. Senior. It had been 10 years since the ants started to race. As this senior Pang sobbed, Loopy Toad more or less understood the whole story from beginning to end. A while ago, when little Master Ling had gone to Fatty Luo's shop to help Grandfather Wang maintain his kitchen knife, he had happened to see a heavenly fisher stone in Fatty Luo's hand. Thus, little Master Ling had used his heavenly eye to help Fatty Luo appraise it, but in the end, he had unexpectedly been drawn into the hidden space inside the heavenly fisher stone and met this Taoist Guang Pang Guang in front of him. Taoist Guang, at first I wanted to take him in as my disciple and make him my believer. He would help me set up 9,981 statues all over the world, and then find 99,981 disciples. That way, I would be able to successfully overcome the samsara spirit tribulation and surpass true immortal to attain venerated immortal realm. But who knew that your master wouldn't agree at all? Loopy Toad. It would be a miracle if he agreed. He sighed. I set up this space so that the first person to enter it would automatically sign a soul contract. After my first attempt failed, I wanted to use the power of the contract to sneak into your master's dream again to look for him. Loopy Toad. And then? Taoist Guang. And then? I was blocked. Loopy Toad. Loopy Toad didn't know what would happen to other people in this situation, but listening to this senior Pang, Loopy Toad really felt that it was something little Master Ling would do. Blocking the contract and preventing its power from being produced normally might be very difficult for other people, but for Ling Jinren, it was a piece of cake. Speaking up to this point, Taoist Guang felt like crying. If you hadn't signed a contract with your master a while ago, I'm afraid I would have been trapped in this space for the rest of my life. Loopy Toad. Taoist Guang took a deep breath and said, "This time I found Brother Dog. I wanted to ask Brother Dog to help me pass on a message to the seniors outside." So this was what they were waiting for? Hearing this, Loopy Toad couldn't help smiling in its heart. It smelled, a business opportunity? What's in it? Loopy Toad stared at the old man. It's a blueprint for a weapon. It's absolutely impossible for anyone to refuse it. I even feel that it would be a loss to hand it over in order to win a sliver of freedom, said Taoist Guang. What blueprint? This successfully piqued Loopy Toad's interest. Taoist Guang couldn't help laughing. Before that, I want to ask Brother Dog another small question. Loopy Toad. Taoist Guang, do you know your master's true strength? You want to find out about my master's realm? Loopy Toad raised its head and looked at him. It's better for Senior Pang to judge for yourself, but I can tell you my master's cultivation method. Taoist Guang, oh? Tell me about it. He does radio calisthenics and eye exercises every day. Apart from that, he also does 1 talisman, 1 seal script and 5-3. What's 5-3? 5 years of college entrance exams and 3 years of simulations. Chapter 394. Hearing this, Taoist Guang couldn't help sighing. It wasn't that he couldn't understand. After all, given the senior's level, he could even come and go as he pleased in the soul space of a true immortal. He could even block the space contract that Taoist Guang had automatically established. Thus, he had already deduced that the senior outside was at least a venerated immortal. In the entire history of cultivation, the number of almighties who had become venerated immortals could be counted on one hand since the spirit energy information era. This was the upper realm that every true immortal dreamt of. For many foundation building stage and golden core stage cultivators, they believed that only by stepping into the soul formation stage, true cultivation had just begun. For soul formation cultivators, they similarly believed that only when they reached the true immortal realm could they be called cultivators. But realms were something that could never be reached. It was only when you reached a higher level that you would understand the vastness of heaven and earth and the mysteries of the universe. In the eyes of most true immortals, the venerated immortal realm could be considered the beginning of their Tao journey. Everything below the venerated immortal realm was fabricated. Inside the soul space, Taoist Guang stood upright on the island he had created. Facing the sea breeze, he gazed at the endless horizon as he pondered endlessly in his heart. Everyone who pursued the venerated immortal realm had something called a pattern in their hearts. The senior outside must have a very big world in his heart, and probably has a pattern that ordinary people can't imagine. Taoist Guang suddenly sighed with emotion as he looked at Loopy Toad and said, I'm guessing that this senior is definitely preparing to pursue the next realm. Loopy Toad was silent. Loopy Toad didn't know whether or not Little Master Ling had the pattern that Taoist Guang was talking about. But the only thing it knew was that what Little Master Ling was pursuing definitely wasn't as exaggerated as Taoist Guang imagined. Ling Jinren was indeed preparing. She was preparing for the upcoming midterm exams. I know that senior's identity isn't simple. Furthermore, every senior cultivates in their own unique way, which they never tell others easily. If you don't want to tell me, that's fine. As long as you agree to help me pass on the message, this old man will also give you that weapon blueprint. Taoist Guang sat down cross-legged and faced Loopy Toad as he spoke. His voice was very gentle and didn't sound like that of an old senior at all. You still haven't told me what the blueprint is. Loopy Toad wagged its tail. You won't refuse. Taoist Guang was very confident about this. Senior, don't tell me you're going to take out a god artifact blueprint? Loopy Toad's face lit up. As far as I know, most divine weapons are formed by heaven and earth and can't be made. If you really have a blueprint for making a divine weapon, Senior, you should save it. I might be able to scam others, but I'm not stupid. Taoist Guang couldn't help laughing. It could only be said that as expected of that senior's dog outside. He knew quite a lot. Don't worry. What I'm going to give you is not the blueprint for a god artifact. However, the value of this item is comparable to a god artifact now. Taoist Guang waved his hand and then raised it, and a jade scroll suddenly appeared in his palm. As soon as the jade scroll appeared, Loopy Toad instantly sensed that it wasn't simple. There was an extremely familiar scent on the jade scroll. Not only that, but even without the blueprint itself, the jade scroll itself was a supreme treasure. The density of the spiritual energy contained in it could be said to be extremely terrifying. I actually have a lot of priceless things on me which I sealed in this soul space back then. This is one of the treasures I collected when I was all-powerful back then. Taoist Guang held the jade scroll tightly as he introduced it. There was a little pride in his words, but also a little reluctance to part with it. But now, in exchange for his freedom and Ling Jinren's help, he had no other choice. What on earth is this? Loopy Toad stared at the jade scroll a little absent-mindedly. You should have heard of the gate between worlds, right? Taoist Guang suddenly changed the subject to something Loopy Toad was most familiar with. Loopy Toad nodded. It was more than familiar. Back then, it had been pushed out by the Demon Kings to be the vanguard. Then it had burped. Taoist Guang began to talk about the gate between worlds in the past. As we all know, the gate between worlds connects the demon world and the current human cultivation world. Many people think that the gate between worlds was specially created by the demon race in an attempt to invade the human cultivation world. But the truth is a little different. In the demon world, there are a lot of important crafting materials that can't be found in the current cultivation world. The demon world is rich in strange stones and minerals. In order to make more powerful magic treasures, many artificers back then were looking for ways to enter the demon race. After that, the first version of the gate between worlds was created. So, the gate between worlds we see today was in fact created by a cultivator. Taoist Guang continued, you might also know the creator's Taoist name. It's the legendary Immortal Xuanhuan who became a venerated immortal early on. Immortal Xuanhuan again? Loopy Toad was startled. It had never heard this story before. Loopy Toad actually didn't know much about Immortal Xuanhuan's origins, but from all the information it had heard, it felt that this person was very experienced and knowledgeable. There was nothing he didn't know how to refine weapons and elixirs, and he could be said to be a top student among cultivators. Immortal Xuanhuan had created the famous magic weapons which were regarded as the three auspicious treasures in the cultivation circle: the 7-star sword, the purple gold gourd, and the golden canopy rope. Loopy Toad had already been extremely shocked back then, but shock aside, it couldn't compare to what it was feeling now. Loopy Toad had never expected that the gate between worlds, which it was relatively familiar with, had actually been personally created by Immortal Xuanhuan. And the most important thing was that this Immortal Xuanhuan's whereabouts were really too mysterious. Loopy Toad had only ever heard of him in legends and had never seen him in person. He was as mysterious as Little Black and Dopey was uncle downstairs. Are you surprised? Seeing Loopy Toad's stunned expression, Taoist Guang couldn't help laughing. When I learned the truth back then, it took me a long time to digest it before I could accept it. At that moment, Loopy Toad caught onto a key question. Senior, I think I heard you say, first version of the gate between worlds? What does this mean? Literally, Taoist Guang answered truthfully. The materials used to make the first version of the gate between worlds were rather crude. After the first version of the gate between worlds appeared, it was strengthened and updated every time it appeared. Because it was already connected to the demon world at that time, Immortal Xuanhuan started to use materials from the demon world to repair and replace the raw materials used to make the gate between worlds. Loopy Toad, Taoist Guang. So, the gate between worlds that has appeared now should be the 20th version that Immortal Xuanhuan strengthened. Loopy Toad, by the 20th version. The materials used to make the gate between worlds have all been replaced with materials from the demon world. This is why many cultivators of later generations mistakenly believe that the gate between worlds is a product of the demon race. In fact, it wasn't until the 20th version of the gate between worlds appeared that the diagram of the array used to summon the gate between worlds officially appeared in the cultivation circle. Taoist Guang said, if I'm not mistaken, it was Immortal Xuanhuan who issued this diagram of the summoning array, and before the 20th version appeared, the 20 times the gate between worlds appeared in the human world was probably because Immortal Xuanhuan was testing its performance. Loopy Toad was suddenly overcome with fear. Chapter 395. Gazing at the jade scroll, Loopy Toad was extremely shaken. It actually had a lot of speculations about the blueprint itself, but it had never thought that it would actually be the blueprint for the first version of the gate between worlds. Furthermore, it had never expected the gate between worlds to be personally created by a human almighty. It was a portal that could connect the two worlds, but since it had been created, it should also be classified as a magic treasure. But it was very clear that the gate between worlds couldn't be judged by common sense. Strictly speaking, the gate between worlds had already completely surpassed a top-notch holy weapon, and was a world-class magic treasure created by man. In the current known history of cultivation, there were actually records of world-class magical equipment. It was the ultimate magical equipment that a cultivator could create by relying on their own strength. It was also the only existence that could be created by a cultivator and contend against the divine artifact-level magical equipment that was born from the heavens and earth. In short, it was called world-defying magical equipment. In the face of this kind of world-defying magic treasure, top-notch holy weapons were just a bunch of scrap metal that couldn't withstand the impact of spirit power at all, and might shatter like glass as soon as they were taken out. Loopy Toad had initially thought that human cultivators being able to create world-defying magic treasures was just a legend, because even the top demon gods of the demon race couldn't create something like this. This was because creating a world-defying magic treasure required the power of a world, which wasn't like those small worlds found in ordinary magic treasures. For example, the purple gold gourd could already be considered a top-notch holy weapon, but the small world inside it was still nothing compared to a world-defying magic treasure. In Taoist Guang's words, the scale was too small. Thus, to refine a world-defying magic treasure, according to historical records, one had to create a great world as a foundation, and a great world was equivalent to 99 small worlds. A world-defying magic treasure had to contain at least 99 great worlds before it could truly be called a world-defying magic treasure. But what Loopy Toad found truly frightening wasn't this, but the person who could create a world-defying magic treasure. Since this immortal xuanhuan had created the gate between worlds, then this person was simply a monster. Brother Dog, you should now understand the importance of this blueprint, right? Taoist Guang said as he looked at Loopy Toad. Of course Loopy Toad understood what he meant, because this blueprint wasn't just a blueprint for the gate between worlds, but a world-defying magic treasure. A blueprint was a very important part of refining a magic treasure, and in theory, any magic treasure created based on a blueprint couldn't be considered a fake. For example, those magic treasures on the market only resembled the real thing, and didn't have a core at all. And the blueprint was the core of a magic treasure. The significance of this scroll in Taoist Guang's hand was really too great. If it could be brought out for research, it might topple the current world and cause a huge uproar. It might even cause a bloodbath. At that moment, its body was instinctively afraid. Loopy Toad, at Loopy Immortal God. This was something that even the demon gods could not touch. Even at its peak, it was only at the Demon King realm, which was equivalent to the divine transformation realm of the human race. Seeing the green-furred dog's expression, Taoist Guang couldn't help laughing. Brother Dog, you don't have to be in a hurry to answer me. Go out and think about it. This isn't just a deal between you and me but also with that senior outside. Although Taoist Guang had a smile on his face, the seriousness in his words was genuine. Suddenly, Loopy Toad understood a little why Taoist Guang had said before that he would keep this thing by his side forever. This thing was indeed extraordinary. If news of it got out, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to start a national war. But for Taoist Guang at this point, none of this was important. To him, the most important thing was to be reborn and to be free. Taoist Guang sighed. I've already waited for so many years and I'm actually in no hurry at all. If I want to leave this space, I have to go through the samsara spirit tribulation. But unfortunately in the end I took an unorthodox path and made a mistake. Loopy Toad, Senior, what do you mean now? Taoist Guang, I have a feeling that the senior outside will definitely have a way. No matter what method he uses, as long as he's willing to help, I'm willing to tell him a big secret. Loopy Toad was curious. What is it about? Taoist Guang's expression turned serious. The Immortal's treasure house. It's a great world that Immortal xuanhuan opened up independently back then, and the wealth he left behind is sealed inside. I know where the entrance is. Loopy Toad was gobsmacked again. Could it be that Senior also found the blueprint in the Immortal's treasure house? No, Taoist Guang shook his head. I was fortunate enough to come into contact with Immortal xuanhuan before. Although I didn't see his face, I should be able to confirm that it's him, Loopy Toad. The rumor is that Immortal xuanhuan travels the world and his whereabouts are unknown. How did Senior confirm this? Taoist Guang said slowly, that day about 1,000 years ago, I went on a tour of Snow Village with a special discount group of Foundation Establishment cultivators. I comprehended the Tao intent of nature. At that time I hadn't reached true immortal realm yet, and was in a hurry to break through. Furthermore, in order to follow the group, I made up my mind to seal my acupoints before I left, and fixed my realm at the Foundation Establishment stage. Loopy Toad, Special Discount Group, Taoist Guang, food, lodging and a guide are included for 1 immortal gold bar. Loopy Toad, after we got on the bus, the guide gave each of us an immortal snow glutinous rice cake and said that it was a specialty of Snow Village. Loopy Toad, And then there was no then. The bus drove us to a public toilet in a snowy village and we all had diarrhea. Loopy Toad, do you know what's the scariest thing about this? Speaking up to this point, Taoist Guang still had a trace of lingering fear on his face. This old man actually didn't bring toilet paper. This immortal snow-glutinous rice cake contains a powerful spirit herb that causes diarrhea. If I don't use the antidote. If you don't wipe it with toilet paper, it'll be unbearably itchy. Later, the tour guide threatened us. If we wanted toilet paper and the antidote, we had to pay 2,000 immortal gold bars each or he'd leave without us. This old man felt terrible at that time. Loopy Toad, so senior, you gave in? How is that possible? Taoist Guang snorted. If I hadn't sealed my realm and could only display the strength of a foundation establishment cultivator, I would have been able to kill that bunch of unscrupulous tour guides with a puff of my breath. Loopy Toad, what happened in the end? Taoist Guang, at that time I vowed to die rather than obey and the tour guide abandoned me. Fortunately, I had an antidote on me. Although it couldn't completely cure the illness, it at least slowed down the continuous diarrhea. But I still didn't have toilet paper. Loopy Toad, but at that moment there was a turn of events. In the toilet cubicle, an old brother handed me a roll of toilet paper. Loopy Toad, but what does this have to do with the blueprint of the gate between worlds? Taoist Guang, the jade scroll you're looking at now is that roll of toilet paper. Chapter 396. This story sounded a little strange at first, but it was indeed true. When Taoist Guang told this story of his past in Snow Village, crystalline tears even seeped out of the corners of his eyes. The most painful things in life were that there was no Wi-Fi when you wanted to go online, no toilet paper when you went to the toilet, no seasoning when you ate instant noodles, and no money to spend when you died. Brother Dog, just accept this. You just need to pass on my request to that senior outside, Taoist Guang said to Loopy Toad. He was already mentally prepared. For most people, the venerated immortal realm was something they could only dream of. In his early years, before Taoist Guang had used this strange method to get through the samsara spirit tribulation, he had spent 500 years of his life calculating that this method was the least dangerous to get through the tribulation, and the very important point was that he needed help from a benefactor. Thus, from the moment he met Wang Ling, Taoist Guang had been thinking about this problem. But would the benefactor he was destined to meet really be Wang Ling? Thus, before leaving the soul space, Loopy Toad didn't stand on ceremony, and directly used the space-swallowing spell to swallow the blueprint. After leaving this space, Loopy Toad had already woken up. As soon as it opened its eyes, it saw a silver-haired young man staring curiously at it. Little Silver stared at Loopy Toad and exclaimed, "Wow, you're really awake. There was a meaty aroma from the wooden barrel just now. I thought you were already cooked." Loopy Toad, how do you feel? Wang Ling asked telepathically as he stared at Loopy Toad. Loopy Toad closed its eyes and ran its spirit energy through its body. It could clearly feel a special kind of godly power circulating in its body, and it felt refreshed. After bathing in the holy beast blood, it indeed felt like a brand new person. The circulation of spirit energy was smoother than before, and it could even be said to be unimpeded. Not only that, it could even feel a sense of carefree pleasure from the depths of its soul. This was a manifestation of the improved rapport between the soul and the body. Loopy Toad nodded. I do feel a lot better. The holy beast blood had indeed sped up the rapport between its soul and the body. But Loopy Toad discovered a very serious problem. Its dog fur had actually turned red. Why did my fur turn red? Loopy Toad was already used to having green fur, and it really wasn't used to seeing red all over. Not only was it ugly, but it could also easily cause misunderstandings. From afar it looked like a piece of Genoa ham. Little Silver smirked. After soaking in holy beast blood, it'll take at least a month for the color to fade. Pen, don't worry, we have our secrets. Little Silver, what is this? Pen, a pack of washing powder enchanted by his lord. It can wash an African into a European. Once again Little Silver felt like his 3 views had been dealt a heavy blow. After confirming that the holy beast blood was indeed effective, Wang Ling heaved a huge sigh of relief. However, a single treatment couldn't completely solve the problem of narcolepsy. Wang Ling speculated that it would take at least 3 more soaks before it would be completely cured. Thus, Wang Ling cupped his chin and started to look Little Silver up and down. The expression on his face made Little Silver tremble. From the look in his eyes, this coldness seemed to be mixed with a bit of gentleness, and there was a bit of kindness in the gentleness. This was a classic example of hiding a dagger in a smile. Little Silver already had a bad feeling. He saw Wang Ling stretch out his hand, and a square box appeared out of thin air in his hand. Then Wang Ling carefully held the box and took a deep breath. He seemed to be forcibly restraining some sort of agitated emotion as he strove to maintain his composure. He handed the box to Little Silver and said in an indifferent voice, "Your reward." Holding the box of crispy noodle snacks, Little Silver was lost in thought. He had thought that the 20 packets of crispy noodle snacks as a reward were a joke. He hadn't expected that the final reward would actually really be crispy noodle snacks. That was a whole 4,000 milliliters of holy beast blood. Little Silver felt his liver hurt, but very quickly realized that Wang Ling's liver hurt even more than his own. Who could tell him what the hell was with that reluctant expression on his face as he stared fixedly at the crispy noodle snacks? "Pen, this is the reward that his lord promised you, which has already been settled in advance. Mr. Silver, there should still be 6,000 milliliters of holy beast blood left. When will it be convenient for Mr. Silver to send it over next time?" Little Silver. This was really the first time that Little Silver had ever felt so miserable since he was born. Holding the box of crispy noodle snacks, Little Silver's face was full of grievance. Crispy noodle snacks. What on earth could these crispy noodle snacks do? Could they improve blood circulation and nourish skin like the youth-retaining pill? Could they clear meridians and cleanse veins like the marrow-cleansing pill? Could they replenish essence and chi like the dahuan pill? Could they bring the dead back to life like the soul revival pill? Or could they raise realms like the advanced pill? Obviously, none of them. What was more, the advanced pill was just a legend. It was impossible for it to exist. Although there were indeed relevant records and historical records, no one had been able to research the advanced pill until now. Little Silver had long heard that the Shao clan had spent a lot of money to gather thousands of the nation's top alchemists as the core to set up a research lab with the Shao clan's elite alchemists. But after more than 10 years, they still hadn't been able to develop the basic formula for the advanced pill. So, Little Silver pondered as he waited for this box of crispy noodle snacks, which contained a whole 20 packets. Speaking of realms, the highest level among spirit beasts was first class. For a first-class spirit beast to advance to the level of a holy beast was no different from a cultivator's tribulation. It required a huge amount of time and a heavy price. But there were very few cases of spirit beasts advancing to holy beasts through late-stage cultivation. As far as Little Silver could remember, there were no more than 2 cases in history. Apart from late-stage cultivation, the other type was to rely purely on bloodline inheritance to become a pure natural holy beast. Little Silver belonged to the second type. But even pure natural holy beasts were divided into various ranks, and Little Silver believed that he was probably at the core of the holy beasts. He was a 6th-class holy beast. When he was born, he had only been a 9th-class holy beast, and it had taken him 6,000 years to cultivate to 6th class. 2,000 years for first class. He was now 8,000 years old, and for holy beasts he was still considered a baby at this age. It was just that breaking through to the next realm was really too difficult for holy beasts. What was more, holy beasts were now practically extinct in the world. There might still be other holy beasts, but they might all be in hiding. At the very least, Little Silver hadn't sensed the aura of any other holy beast in the last 100 years. Thus, Little Silver felt that he might be the only remaining holy beast in the world today. I'm so rare. Why can't they cherish me and love me a little? At this thought, Little Silver suddenly felt a little bitter. Seeing the silver-haired young man holding the crispy noodle snacks with an aggrieved expression on his face, Pen couldn't help sighing in his heart. Some people just didn't know how lucky they were. Brother Little Silver, these crispy noodle snacks were personally enchanted by his lord. They're extraordinarily valuable. Pen couldn't help reaching out and patting Little Silver on the shoulder. How many people want them but can't get them? You've struck it big. Ha! Chapter 397. That night, Little Silver left with this box of crispy noodle snacks, full of doubts. In theory, he didn't think a few packets of crispy noodle snacks would be of any use, but it was clear that the Monster Pen's words before he left the villa had been a clear hint, which proved that these crispy noodle snacks were indeed valuable. But Little Silver could only wait until he got back to slowly study them. Although he was a holy beast, it wasn't like he had never heard of crispy noodle snacks before. For many people, this was an unforgettable childhood snack, but as they grew older they wouldn't go out of their way to buy crispy noodle snacks to eat. A lot of people ate crispy noodle snacks when they were young to collect the water margin cards in the crispy noodle snacks, which could be exchanged for prizes. So why were card games so popular now? It was because the kids who had bought crispy noodle snacks to collect cards had grown up. Although Little Silver, who was 8,000 years old, was still just a baby for a holy beast, He felt that there was no way he would be able to open a crispy noodle snack package and eat it in public on the street. In terms of age alone, Little Silver had actually lived for a really long time. Cultivation began after Huaxiao Nation had been founded, and Little Silver had been born long before Huaxiao Nation had been founded. It could be said that Little Silver had witnessed a lot of history. Many holy beasts had disappeared and gone into hiding, and the holy beast community had suffered a devastating blow a long time ago. Little Silver was the only one who had survived until now. Sometimes when he thought about it carefully, he felt that it really hadn't been easy. Thinking about it carefully, this was probably the first time in his long life that he had been in such close contact with human society. He was currently staying in grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's villa for the time being, which could be considered safe. On the other hand, he had also acknowledged Wang Ling as his master. Although this master was a little stingy, there was no need to doubt his strength, and he could definitely protect Little Silver. Holy beasts had very long lifespans, so long that Little Silver himself didn't know how much longer he could live. Little Silver now had 3 wishes. The first was to be able to find other living holy beasts in his lifetime. The second was to work hard at cultivating and break through to become a 5th-class holy beast. Lastly, he had to take good care of Yixian and help her figure out her background as soon as possible. Not only was this girl naturally dumb, but her memory was also fragmented and she couldn't remember many things. Back when Yixian had been poisoned, Little Silver had mistakenly brought her into Immortal Mansion in order to help her find medicine, and they had fallen under the control of the master of Immortal Mansion. Fortunately, Wang Ling had shown up in time, otherwise Little Silver felt that he might not have been able to escape. He had been saved by the art courtyard, so he had to repay this debt of gratitude. On the way home, Little Silver suddenly missed Yixian a little and wondered how she was doing at Cilian Jinren's place. It wasn't until Little Silver left that Loopy Toad told Wang Ling about its dream of entering Taoist Guang's space while soaking in the holy beast blood. This was an agreement between Loopy Toad and Taoist Guang. Without Taoist Guang's consent, it actually wouldn't be good if other people found out about this. Loopy Toad actually didn't regard Little Silver as an outsider. After all, the other party had lost so much blood to alleviate its narcolepsy. But an agreement was an agreement. Before things were confirmed, it would be better for him and Little Master Ling to discuss this matter in person. To be honest, Loopy Toad didn't know what to say. Thinking about it carefully, it felt that this Taoist Guang was actually quite pitiful. In order to pursue a realm, he had sealed his soul in a space to look for a fated person, and now he was begging Little Master Ling to think of a solution for his freedom. The affairs of the world were fickle, and in the end, it was difficult to satisfy both sides. In this world, whenever you had to make a choice, it would be exceptionally hesitant and difficult because most people had difficulty choosing. Loopy Toad felt that Taoist Guang wasn't a bad person. A spirit beast's sixth sense had always been very accurate. It wasn't just limited to sensing danger and detecting an enemy's aura or realm, but was also a judgment of human nature. In the soul space, Loopy Toad had sensed that Taoist Guang was very approachable, which was why it felt that although this senior looked silly and a little immoral, he actually wasn't a bad person. Considering the seriousness of the matter, Loopy Toad raised its head with a rare serious expression on its face. "Wang Ling, I have something to say." Wang Ling's heart trembled at this look. He remembered that this was the first time since he had brought Loopy Toad home that Wang Ling had heard Loopy Toad directly call him by his name and stare at him with a serious expression, indicating that it wanted to talk about something. Wang Ling's imagination instantly ran wild. After all, he was only 16 years old. In some sense, he had inherited Mother Wang and Father Wang's novel-writing genes, and his imagination was even bigger than that of other people his age. So what was he trying to do with his serious look? Furthermore, there seemed to be a hint of nervousness in its serious expression, as if it didn't know what to say. It was like a normally well-behaved child who never messed around casually suddenly coming home to say that he had a girlfriend, and furthermore that she was pregnant. Wait, pregnant? Wang Ling couldn't help hissing as he sucked in a cold breath of air and whispered telepathically, "What did you do to someone else's female dog?" Oh. Loopy Toad almost spat out a mouthful of blood when it heard this. How could it be so hardcore as to randomly look for a female dog? In any case, it had to wait until it could cultivate a human form to look for a big-breasted girl. And the worst thing was that Loopy Toad realized that Little Master Ling spoke telepathically. Not only did he speak telepathically, he even spoke very softly. How afraid was he of other people finding out about this? Loopy Toad thought that this was the legendary, "Don't wash your dirty linen in public." But from a certain point of view, Loopy Toad was actually pretty happy. At the very least, It proved that it had already integrated into this place in Little Master Ling's inner world, and truly regarded it as one of its own. Actually, after interacting with Wang Ling for so long, Loopy Toad had already figured out a lot about Ling Jinren's temper. He looked expressionless on the surface, but in fact, he still had the fiery spirit of a young man in his heart. Loopy Toad called this a paralyzed face but not a paralyzed heart. Although Wang Ling usually didn't like to talk much, Loopy Toad was well aware that Little Master Ling's mind was definitely very rich. It was a pity that Loopy Toad couldn't learn the mind-reading ability, otherwise it would definitely be very interesting. To put it bluntly, Little Master Ling's temperament was that he usually kept strangers at bay, was wary of outsiders, and only kept in touch with people he was familiar with. Loopy Toad suddenly thought of that astrology successor Song Kai whom it had met during the military training exercise for the 6 schools a while ago. Song Kai had done a lot of research on astrology. Loopy Toad hadn't really believed it at first, but now that it analyzed it from various angles, Little Master Ling indeed looked like a classic case of Capricorn facial paralysis. Chapter 398. The Taoist Guang incident was actually a little complicated to explain in words. There were too many secrets involved and it couldn't be explained in a few words. Furthermore, if Loopy Toad repeated its dream of entering Taoist Guang's space from beginning to end, it would actually be suspicious of exaggerating the number of words. So Loopy Toad simply jumped directly onto the table and wrapped its paws around Wang Ling's arm and placed it on its head to keep it relaxed. Loopy Toad knew that Wang Ling had the ability to search memories, but this ability also had its limits. For example, if the person involved directly recounted what they had experienced, it would definitely be clearer than if they had heard it from a grapevine. So Loopy Toad chose this simple and crude method, and directly copied and pasted this memory to Wang Ling. This kind of memory search, memory retrieval, and copying and pasting were actually all spells that were difficult for ordinary cultivators to learn, but that didn't mean Loopy Toad didn't know how to do it. In any case, Loopy Toad had been an awe-inspiring demon king before. Wang Ling watched Loopy Toad's series of actions expressionlessly from the side. It wasn't until Loopy Toad's memory was completely transmitted that his expression changed slightly. He hadn't expected so many things to have happened while Loopy Toad had been soaking in the bath just now. Because Taoist Guang had set him up without permission and forced his soul to form a contract with the space, Wang Ling had been unhappy and blacklisted the old man in a fit of rage. But Wang Ling hadn't expected this Taoist Guang to actually take advantage of this opportunity to find Loopy Toad through his soul contract with Wang Ling. It could only be said that an old senior was an old senior. There was no doubt about Wang Ling's strength, but he was only 16 years old after all, and actually still had a long way to go in terms of cultivation. At the same time, he lacked a lot of experience. Even Wang Ling couldn't solve this problem of experience. He could only accumulate it over time. To put it bluntly, it was actually a matter of time that Wang Ling couldn't control his realm. His realm was growing too fast, and normal cultivators suffered from being unable to break through. It was only Wang Ling who suffered from not having enough time to adapt. But Wang Ling had never forgotten to learn how to control his strength. Like his dumbass big brother Wang Ming had said, his body was gradually familiarizing itself with the special substance in the Tao Talisman seal. When he first came into contact with it, in the worst-case scenario he would directly pass out. Even if he woke up later, he would be weak all over for a long time. But now, the lethality of this substance against him could be said to be decreasing. Wang Ling felt that this was probably because of his immortal physique. The super spell Fang Xing had used earlier, Immortal Mode, gathered the spirit energy of heaven and earth and turned an ordinary person's physique into that of an immortal for a short period of time. However, this spell consumed a lot of energy and lasted only a short time. But it was actually very abnormal when used in battle. This was because this kind of physique was extremely adaptable to the environment. As soon as a spell technique was activated, one would be able to fight without any worries in any environment. And the most amazing thing was that this was an orthodox spell that had been certified by the industry. After using it, there were no side effects. As long as one had enough spiritual energy, they could continue to use it at any time. The only drawback was that it was difficult to learn. So, from a certain point of view, Wang Ling's situation was even more abnormal. He was born with an immortal physique. As for why it couldn't resist the anti-Wang Ling substance that Wang Ming had discovered, Wang Ling's guess was that an immortal's constitution probably had a period of growth. The older they got, the more adaptable they became. And it was very obvious that Wang Ling's immortal physique had probably already successfully broken through the kindergarten stage and was heading towards primary school. This was also why the substance's effect on him was becoming weaker and weaker. Wang Ling knew that this wasn't a long-term solution. He had to think of another way. He also didn't know how long the Tao Talisman seal would last. Looking at the current situation, it would be a miracle if he could survive until he graduated from high school. At that moment, Wang Ling understood what Senior Pang, whose Taoist name was Taoist Guang, had said to Loopy Toad in his soul space. What really interested Wang Ling wasn't the gate between worlds itself, but the Immortal's treasure house that Taoist Guang had mentioned. Legend had it that after Immortal Xuanhuan had wandered the world, he had left behind a huge fortune inside, and was a one piece in the cultivation world. Back then, Immortal Xuanhuan had made two bold proclamations that had spread far and wide in the cultivation world. First, whoever could gather this 7-star sword, purple gold gourd and golden canopy rope, would personally appear to accept him as a disciple and reveal clues about the Immortal's treasure house. Second, in addition to the first method of obtaining clues, if someone was fated to find the whereabouts of the Immortal's treasure house, they could also inherit its wealth. These two bold proclamations had actually been around for a very long time, and had been circulating since before Wang Ling had been born. They were flags from ancient times, but until now no one had been able to find them. Wang Ling felt that there might be something here that could help him. For the sake of the Immortal's treasure house, Wang Ling felt that he could have a good chat with this Taoist Guang. But given this Taoist Guang's identity as a wily old fox, Wang Ling felt that it was better to be cautious when dealing with this kind of person. So, Wang Ling immediately composed a text message and called out to another wily old fox in the cultivation circle who was brimming with a sense of justice. Not long after he sent the message, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal replied almost instantly, "Brother Ling, you actually have clues about the Immortal's treasure house?" On the other side, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was indescribably shaken when he received the message. If this kind of news got out, the whole cultivation circle would tremble. Sometimes, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal also felt that this Brother Ling of his was very mystical. Why was Brother Ling always able to speak so casually about such a big matter? And there was one thing that grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was very curious about. Based on grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's understanding of Wang Ling generally wouldn't be bothered to get involved in this kind of matter that involved a lot of people. On one hand, he liked to keep a low profile and wasn't too willing to show his face in public. On the other hand, he found it very troublesome. This time, Wang Ling had actually taken the initiative to bring up the Immortal's treasure house and even invited him to discuss it. There had to be something fishy about this. Out of curiosity, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sent a message and asked, "Brother Ling, why are you suddenly interested in the Immortal's treasure house?" On the other side, Wang Ling was silent when he saw this message. Because only a few of his family members knew about suppressing their auras, no matter how familiar he was with grenade-throwing, there was no way Wang Ling would tell anyone about it. This was grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's biggest secret. Seeing that Wang Ling wasn't replying, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal swiftly made a guess and sent another message. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Could it be that this Immortal's treasure house has a collection of crispy noodle snacks? Wang Ling. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was completely stupefied and couldn't help sking. He had never thought that even Immortal Xuanhuan would have this taste, as expected of a big shot, even their food was the same. Chapter 399. A lot of things happened that night. On the other side, Little Silver's journey back to grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's villa on his own wasn't very peaceful. He felt like someone was following him. A holy beast had all 6 senses, and was 100 times more sensitive to danger than a first-class spirit beast. This group of people following him didn't have good intentions, and they gave off an unpleasant aura. This was the evil aura of malicious people. After sensing that he was being followed, Little Silver quickly sped up and headed for a crowded area in an attempt to shake them off. Little Silver wasn't afraid of these people. What he was afraid of was his true identity being exposed. If people found out that he was an 8,000-year-old silver unicorn, even Little Silver himself couldn't imagine the consequences. So what Little Silver was really afraid of wasn't people, but people who knew his true identity and harbored evil intentions. Furthermore, this group of people was very patient and had been following him for a very long time. Little Silver thought about it carefully and realized that this group of people had been following him since he had taken the spirit bus to the subway. Little Silver didn't know which force they belonged to or what their objective was. Furthermore, the other party's target was very clear. In a crowded place like the subway station, they had been able to lock onto him with such precision. What should he do? Should he find a place with no one around and make his move? Little Silver was very conflicted. That was because after the Immortal Mansion incident, Wang Ling had made a pact with Little Silver before taking him out that Little Silver wasn't allowed to act on his own without permission. If anything was exposed, everything would be over. In this situation it was better to ask for advice. Thinking this, Little Silver started to make a mad detour around the block to buy time to send a group message. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had only recently added him to the group, and he had only just learned how to type. When he was at home, Little Silver preferred to use the voice input function, which was more efficient. But now that he was in a noisy block, it was so noisy that he couldn't even hear clearly, let alone voice. Little Silver had tried it just now and realized that as soon as he spoke, his voice would turn into a string of electronic sounds, and he couldn't communicate at all. Thus he could only type now. The main point was that he had only learned it recently, so his typing speed was very slow. Furthermore, this keyboard was really too small, and Little Silver found it inconvenient to type. It was better to change to a giant screen and let him turn into his real body and step on it with his hooves. After walking around the block for more than 3 minutes, Little Silver finally managed to type with difficulty, "Someone's following me. What should I do?" Soon there was a series of replies in the group. xianxia shouted, "Beat him up." Lightning Dharmaraja, "Shock him." Buling Saber Immortal, "Kill him." Immortal Toya, "Poison him." Little Silver. There were actually only a few people who had been involved in the Immortal Mansion incident who knew who Little Silver really was. When grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had added Little Silver to the group, he had told those who hadn't been involved in the Immortal Mansion incident that Little Silver was a distant relative of his, and had done a pretty good job of keeping it a secret. Although everyone in the group was grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's own people, the fewer people who knew that Little Silver was a holy beast, the better. Thus, no one in the group would publicly reveal Little Silver's identity and just treat him as a new brother. Under normal circumstances, newcomers who had just joined the group would usually be teased. Little Silver was anxious. He had spent 3 minutes typing 8 words, but this group of brothers and sisters didn't take it seriously at all. How should he deal with this situation? Continue to explain? It seemed that he didn't have much time left. The people behind him were watching him very closely, and if he repeatedly typed in circles around this block, they would definitely become suspicious. And if he sent a love package, the old friends in the group would even less take it seriously. Fang Xing was also in the group. He hadn't expected Little Silver to actually run into trouble at this time. "Seniors, don't tease Little Silver. I lost a bet back then and promised Ling Jinren not to make a move at will." This was Fang Xing's reminder to the others who knew Little Silver's true identity, and at the same time, it was a unified statement to the outside world as he forcefully changed the agreement between Little Silver and Wang Ling into a bet. These lines had all been rehearsed before Little Silver had joined the group. Clearly, Fang Xing's reminder enlightened Xilian Jinren, Dharmaraja and the others. To be honest, if it wasn't for Fang Xing's reminder, they would have almost forgotten about this. As a holy beast, Little Silver couldn't make a move at will, and had to get permission. Now that he was being followed, it was indeed a tricky problem. In front of the screen, Little Silver was moved when he saw Fang Xing's reply. Favorable impression points of Fang Xing plus 10,086. Xilian Jinren, where is brother Little Silver now? Looking around, Little Silver found a street sign which read, Luoyan Road. Little Silver instantly despaired, MMP. What kind of F*** King Road name was this? He typed slowly to begin with, and the most important thing was that he didn't recognize all of these words. At that moment, Fang Xing spoke in the group again. "Brother Little Silver, you've just learned the chat software, so you're a little slow at typing. Brother Little Silver, open the multifunction box in the chat interface. There's a location tab on it, and you can send your location with one click. Let us know where you are first." Little Silver was so moved to tears when he read these words. Brother Fang Xing knows me best. Following Fang Xing's instructions, Little Silver quickly sent his coordinates, which just happened to show the street name in the group chat window. When they saw the street name, everyone in the group was enlightened. Xilian Jinren, oh, it's here. Lightning Dharmaraja, I know this place. It's a place that sells music magic artifacts. It's very noisy, and when you talk around here, your voice becomes electronic. Immortal Toya, how do you pronounce these words? Xilian Jinren, I don't know. Lightning Dharmaraja, I don't know. Little Silver was stunned. A group of cultivators actually suffered at the same time because of their lack of culture. Fang Xing, it seems to be near my house. How about I go over and take a look? But right after Fang Xing said this, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal suddenly went online. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, Brother Fang Xing, you don't have to go over. Brother Little Silver, don't worry, Ling Jinren has already agreed. Special situations require special responses. The people following you are from the Demon Hunters Association, and it's very likely that they're high-level elders on the run. Brother Little Silver, it's best if you lure them to a hidden place and get rid of them together without exposing your identity. Seeing this message, everyone in the group and Little Silver breathed sighs of relief. But Little Silver still found it very strange. Why were these people from the Demon Hunters Association targeting him? He and the Demon Hunters Association had absolutely nothing to do with each other. Even if this group of elders came for revenge, it was reasonable to say that they shouldn't be looking for him. But right now Little Silver couldn't care less. Since Wang Ling had already agreed to make a move, he naturally wouldn't be polite to this group of people behind him. He had been stifled to death these last few days. Chapter 400. On the other side, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had just sent Little Silver a message in the main group when he immediately opened a private chat window. The person he was talking to was none other than Wang Ling. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal quickly typed a question. Brother Ling, why do you know who those people are, and why are you so sure that the Demon Hunters Association will find Brother Little Silver? Wang Ling was silent on this question. He felt that it was actually a little complicated. In fact, this matter had to start from when Little Silver had delivered the blood. At that time, when Wang Ling had been about to soak Loopy Toad in Holy Beast blood, he had suddenly realized that someone had left a soul mark on Loopy Toad's body. This marking technique was very clever, and was even more powerful than the one Immortal Castle had used to track Song Qingshu back then. The main thing was that it was so well hidden that it wasn't easy to discover it unless you looked carefully. Loopy Toad had stayed at home before, and the only people who had the opportunity to leave this mark on Loopy Toad were the people from the Demon Hunters Association. Wang Ling deduced that it had to be xianxia who had done this in secret, but given xianxia's abilities, he wouldn't have been able to make this kind of soul mark on Loopy Toad alone. Thus, Wang Ling deduced that there had to be an expert helping him from behind the scenes. Then, when Wang Ling had thrown Loopy Toad into the wooden barrel, he had transferred the mark to Little Silver in passing. After learning the whole story, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal wiped his sweat as he looked at the screen. Brother Ling, did you plan this from the beginning? But can I ask why Little Silver? Actually, Wang Ling had also given this question careful thought. First of all, the people who had come for revenge were elders, and of course they were much stronger than trash like xianxia. Secondly, Loopy Toad's narcolepsy hadn't been completely cured, and it would be a serious problem if it collapsed in battle. In addition, and last of all, the Soul Pet contract's long-range assistance was also on cooldown. So Wang Ling's answer was very simple. What if Loopy Toad was injured? Sitting in front of the screen, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was lost in deep thought at this answer. For some reason, he smelled a hint of doting. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal suddenly felt sorry for Little Silver. Speaking of which, he suddenly remembered that while Little Silver had acknowledged Wang Ling as his master, he hadn't signed a contract yet. Furthermore, just from Wang Ling's attitude on this matter, he could already tell how important Little Silver and Loopy Toad were in Wang Ling's heart. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal couldn't help sighing in his heart. If Little Silver really wanted a place in Brother Ling's harem, he still had a long way to go. Wait a minute, it seemed like he had been fed a mouthful of dog food for no reason? Goddamn dog food. Whether it was Fang Xing's house or Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's, this block was actually very close to both Fang Xing's and Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's houses. It was only this oddly named road that Little Silver had never taken. If he hadn't received instructions from Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, he really wouldn't have known what to do with this bunch of people behind him. After receiving clear instructions, Little Silver felt reassured and deliberately slowed down his pace. There weren't many people following him, only two. Following closely behind Little Silver, they finally arrived at a factory building that was still under construction. A modern food processing plant was probably going to be built here, but it was currently still under construction. When the work stopped at night, the workers would have already gotten off work, so there wouldn't be anyone around. Moreover, the construction site inside was very spacious. The two Demon Hunters Association elders tailed him all the way and stopped in front of the construction site's tightly shut iron gate. They saw that the silver-haired youth had leaped in from here. There was an 80% chance that they had been discovered. He's actually not moving. An old Taoist in a gray robe stood at the door with a compass in his hand, which indicated the location of the soul mark. After the silver-haired young man had leaped in, the moving soul mark on the compass had stopped moving, which meant that the young man had already stopped moving. This beast has guts to actually dare declare war on us. The old Taoist snorted coldly. Senior brother, don't you think we might have the wrong target? On the side, a somewhat effeminate man with a mole on his face couldn't help asking. Before xuanhuan had been caught, in addition to secretly placing a soul mark, he had in fact also transmitted a secret order. After the secret order was analyzed, it was a description of the enemy. Apart from the young man, the main force was a green dog and it was an akita. Based on the analysis of the secret order, xuanhuan also stated that the dog's grade was estimated to be 3rd class, but it had a very powerful master behind it. It was precisely because its master had activated the soul pet contract and strengthened its strength that xuanhuan's group had been completely wiped out. But the problem was, the target they were chasing now wasn't a dog. As the junior brother, the effeminate man seriously suspected that something must have gone wrong, but the problem now was that the two of them had their own opinions. The old Taoist held the compass and refused to believe it no matter what. The old Taoist narrowed his eyes and snorted. The soul mark contains the president's power. You and I have both seen the president's strength, so it's absolutely impossible for there to be a mistake. I firmly believe that the young man inside is that dog. But senior brother, even if he transformed into a human, he would still have to be 1st class. But xuanhuan's secret order shows that the dog is 3rd class. The junior brother was startled. He felt that this matter wasn't reliable. There were too many suspicious points. Moreover, as a green-haired dog, even if it transformed into a human, its hair should at least be green, right? There were too many things that didn't add up. Senior brother Kanglin, do you think it's possible that someone tampered with the soul mark? The junior brother guessed. Tampered? The old Taoist couldn't help but laugh. Junior brother Han, you're still young and inexperienced. Junior brother Han, but, there are no buts. The old Taoist pinched his beard. Once the soul mark is engraved, it can't be washed away unless the soul is cleansed. What's more, the president's soul mark technique is superb and extremely good at hiding. It's hard to even find it, let alone tampering. And junior brother Han, you said tampered, but how? Junior brother Han's voice was very soft. I speculate that maybe someone moved the soul mark. As soon as he said that, the old Taoist laughed. Junior brother, the hole in your brain is too big. How can someone move the soul mark in this world? This kind of method doesn't exist. Junior brother Han, unless he's the reincarnation of an immortal king. The old Taoist waved his hand and chuckled. If there really is such a person, I, Kanglin, swear on my Taoist name that my entire family will die within a few days. Junior brother Han, but senior brother Kanglin, aren't you an orphan? The old Taoist, you and I have depended on each other for many years and hunt spirit beasts for a living. I've long regarded you as family. Chapter 401. Junior brother Han felt that if it had been anyone else, as long as they used their brains and calmed down and thought about it carefully, they would feel that something wasn't right. After all, it was really hard to associate a 3rd-class green-furred akita with a silver-haired young man, since spirit beasts in human form usually had something in common with their original bodies. But given the current situation, this junior brother Han couldn't get a word in edgewise. There was nothing he could do about it. Apart from strength, the cultivation circle was a circle that valued seniority even more. Some old seniors liked to give pointers from the perspective of a senior, which was very frustrating. Seniors were more willing to look at problems based on their experience, and most of them were pedantic and stubborn people who clung to dogma. Although junior brother Han felt that this was a trap, he indeed couldn't find any other reason to refute his senior brother's words. Because the idea of transferring the soul mark was really a little whimsical. In theory, it was indeed impossible to achieve. Little Silver stood on the empty construction site and had already confirmed that there was no one else there. He could clearly sense that the 2 cultivators from the Demon Hunters Association who had been tracking him were standing outside the Iron Gate. One was at the soul formation stage, the other at the nascent soul stage. After detecting their realms, Little Silver instantly felt a deep sense of loss. They were too weak, not enough at all. Generally speaking, when there was a disparity in realms, the most difficult thing to do was the legendary show mercy. But it seemed that Little Silver didn't need to consider this problem at all today. He remembered that grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had instructed him to kill these 2 elders of the Demon Hunters Association without exposing his identity. This also meant that he could kill these 2 elders without any worries. As for whether he had to find the president of the Demon Hunters Association through these 2 elders, that had nothing to do with Little Silver. Then how should he make these 2 people die a miserable and painful death? Little Silver narrowed his eyes and cupped his chin as he pondered with a slight smile on his face. News of the Demon Hunters Association had spread like wildfire in the last 2 days, and there was no way Little Silver wouldn't know about it. The reason why holy beasts had gone extinct was precisely because of organizations similar to the Demon Hunters Association, which disregarded life for the sake of profit. killed indiscriminately, and regarded living creatures as worthless grass. This kind of people really should be put to death. While Little Silver was thinking this, his ears suddenly twitched. Outside the iron gate, a bright ball of light suddenly shot through the air like a monkey. The next moment, this light instantly scattered and turned into several hooked claws that shot at him. A trap ball? Little Silver recognized this ball of light at one glance. It was a single-use magical beast-catching ball, a common magical treasure used to capture spirit beasts. However, if the capture failed, this magical treasure would become useless. Furthermore, this type of magic treasure also had a written rule that only a person with a pet trainer qualification certificate could possess and use it normally. Also, there was a rule that this kind of magic treasure could be used. Little Silver's face was as calm as an ancient well, and he blinked his slender eyelashes with a very helpless expression. He didn't even wait for the beast-catching ball's outstretched claw to grab it, and directly stretched out his hand to grab it. In the end, the beast-catching ball that the old Taoist had just taken out didn't even have a chance to do anything before Little Silver crushed it to death in the air. The light from the trap ball disappeared, indicating that the capture had failed. The two elders of the Demon Hunters Association immediately rushed through the iron gate after taking out the trap ball, but Little Silver was too fast. As soon as they landed, they saw that the trap ball they had taken out earlier was already in the silver-haired young man's hands. What a piece of trash! Little Silver sighed in his heart and directly crushed the trap ball into powder. The old Taoist was stupefied. That's impossible. This trap ball was an advanced product among trap balls. Even if it was a second-class spirit beast, it had an 85% chance of successfully catching it. Little Silver pursed his lips and was speechless. It was just a broken ball and it wanted to catch him. Where on earth did he get his confidence from? The old Taoist stared at Little Silver. You're a good green-furred dog, you do have some skill. Little Silver, why am I a dog? The old Taoist, humph. Don't think that just because you ate a meatball that can turn you into a human, you can pretend to be a first-class spirit beast. This old man is quick-witted, I've already seen through everything. Little Silver, on the side, junior brother Han's heart trembled when he saw this scene. To be able to catch the trap ball so easily already proved that this young man's identity wasn't ordinary. Senior brother, I think there's something strange about this person. Why don't we retreat first and make a decision later? The junior brother kindly reminded him, but the old Taoist wasn't willing to listen. Let's do it again. This time, my venerable self definitely won't let it escape. As he spoke, the old Taoist made a hand seal, and another ball of light flew out of his hand. My venerable self doesn't believe that I can't catch you this time. The old Taoist grinned maliciously. This was an upgraded version of the trap ball from before. Not only was it faster and had a higher chance of catching spirit beasts, but more importantly, it had an invisibility effect. This ball was clearly the old Taoist's prized possession, and he wouldn't use it unless it was a critical moment. An ordinary trap ball cost 1,000 immortal gold bars. Little Silver surmised that this old Taoist was offering a collector's edition now would cost more than 10,000 immortal gold bars to buy one. Trapping spirit beasts was also a money-burning game. However, to the old Taoist's surprise, less than half a second after the ball was taken out, this silver-haired young man actually caught it again. The old Taoist was so startled that he took a step back. Don't you have any other tricks up your sleeve? Little Silver looked at the old Taoist a little disappointedly. This was definitely the most dreamless soul formation cultivator Little Silver had ever seen. Relying solely on one-time use magic treasures to burn money to fight, Little Silver felt that there was no future in this. That's impossible. You're just a spirit beast. When dealing with spirit beasts, a trap ball is more useful than any magic treasure. The old Taoist was so angry that his whole body trembled. Junior brother, take out our trump card. Senior brother Kanglin, I'll bear all the losses. Now that things had come to this, the old Taoist knew that there was no way out, and he roared. Then, the junior brother beside him had no choice but to take out a beast-catching ball embedded with crystals from his storage pouch. This was their final trump card. This beast-catching ball was also the highest grade of beast-catching balls, Master Ball. Even if it was a first-class spirit beast, its success rate was as high as 100%. Go, Master Ball. The old Taoist roared. Little Silver, a resplendent light shone from the Master Ball. Then Little Silver sighed, stretched out his hand again and strangled the light to death. Impossible, that's impossible. The old Taoist's eyes widened. This Master Ball was already his and his junior brother's final trump card. How could it be fended off so easily with a 100% success rate? Holding the master ball in his hand, the corners of Little Silver's mouth couldn't help twitching. Indeed, the master ball was very powerful and very rare. It could even capture a first-class spirit beast with a 100% success rate. Chapter 402. At the beginning, Little Silver had thought that this would be a rather interesting fight. While the gap in realms was indeed a little big, at the very least he would be able to move his muscles and bones. However, this old Taoist was too lousy. From beginning to end, the only thing he knew to do was throw trap balls, which made Little Silver very disappointed. When all was said and done, this was also the effect of the current era of peace on cultivators. Their days were too easy, and they didn't have the time to calm down and practice their actual combat skills. In Little Silver's view, just having a realm was useless. Actual combat skills and realm were equally important. In the past, if a soul formation cultivator couldn't throw 100 punches in a second, they would be too embarrassed to tell others about their realm. Of course, if you could kill someone in one punch, you could completely ignore this argument. Although there were a lot of formidable cultivators in this day and age, Little Silver had to admit that the weakening of modern cultivators' actual combat skills had already become a trend, just like the aging of the population. In the past, it had always been spells and battle techniques, but now more and more cultivators chose to compete with magic treasures. In short, there were more and more substandard goods. In the past, the strong were respected and strength reigned supreme. But in this day and age, realm actually wasn't the only standard of measurement. From Little Silver's point of view, if he ranked the important standards of modern cultivators in descending order, they could be roughly divided into IQ, realm and money. In this day and age, could you survive without a realm? Of course you could. But the prerequisite was that you had to be an honest person and live a dutiful life. Could you survive without a realm but with money? Of course you could. Money was omnipotent in any age, and money could make the devil turn millstones. Nowadays, there were plenty of rich kids who spent a lot of money to invest in all kinds of heavenly treasures to improve their physiques. Lin Xiaozong, the famous second-generation rich kid in the high school circle who had been mentioned before, was a good example. Then here was the last question. Could you survive without IQ? Little Silver stared at the old Taoist in front of him, who looked like he had one foot in the grave and couldn't help sighing in his heart. He thought that if this old Taoist had half the IQ of his junior brother, he wouldn't have fallen to this state today. Little Silver blinked. His eyelashes were so long that people would often mistake him for a girl just by looking at his eyes. The moonlight shone on his silver hair, giving off a beautiful glow. Coupled with his white shirt, he looked holy from afar. Then, in front of the two Demon Hunters Association cultivators, Little Silver began to release his aura. The leading old Taoist glanced at him. This aura caused his expression to change very quickly. Junior brother, be careful. This spiritual pressure was like a great sword of Demacia descending from the sky, stabbing straight into their heads. In an instant, the two brothers couldn't help but feel their blood boiling. The weaker junior brother Han directly spat out a mouthful of blood with a wah sound. He's going to enlarge it. The old Taoist's expression changed drastically. According to his experience, under normal circumstances, there would usually be a powerful spiritual pressure that would descend before a big move was used. Little Silver was speechless when he heard this. How was this? He hadn't even released 20% of his chi. You're not worthy of my big move at all. Little Silver couldn't help yawning. This fight was too boring. When all was said and done, there were too few people nowadays who could force him to release his intrinsic spirit field to fight. So even now, Little Silver's memory of his fight with Wang Ling was still fresh in his mind. He had lived for 8,000 years, and it was only in that fight with Wang Ling that he could clearly feel a suffocating sense of oppression. Holy beasts never submitted to humans easily, which was why Little Silver had chosen Wang Ling of his own accord. Let's end this fight. Thinking this, Little Silver straightened his expression and didn't plan to continue playing with these two people. Then, his pupils contracted slightly, and the spiritual pressure in the air suddenly intensified. With Little Silver at its center, a huge tidal wave swept out in all directions. The ground shook and cracked, and the bricks and tiles around the construction site floated into the air as if they were weightless. As the pressure continued to intensify, a silver mark appeared between Little Silver's eyebrows. Itinerant immortal mark. The two fellow disciples cried out in alarm. At that moment, the old Taoist was drenched in cold sweat. The situation had already completely exceeded his expectations. In fact, the moment Little Silver had caught the master ball, the old Taoist had already realized that something wasn't right. He should have listened to his junior brother earlier. Maybe they really had the wrong person and the soul mark might really have been tampered with. And this young man was most likely an expert whose strength was perhaps higher than that of a soul formation cultivator, at the void refinement stage. But the old Taoist could never have imagined that the silver-haired young man standing in front of them at that moment would actually be an itinerant immortal. Above the soul formation stage were the tribulation and void refinement realms, but at the same time, these three realms were collectively known as perfected being, itinerant immortal, and true immortal. The moment the itinerant immortal mark had appeared, the old Taoist had already understood that this wasn't something he, a soul formation cultivator, could contend with. Even if 10, 20, 100 more people came, they would all be crushed. Goodbye, the two of you. Little Silver smiled slightly. He didn't even need to use any spells because he didn't need to. Just the pressure alone was enough to force the old Taoist and his junior brother to kneel on the ground, their bodies twitching all over. You're not a spirit beast? The old Taoist gritted his teeth unwillingly, his expression a little resentful and remorseful. Because even a first-class spirit beast could only cultivate to the void refinement stage at most. It was absolutely impossible for it to become an itinerant immortal. Itinerant immortal was a collective term for the level between the unity stage and the tribulation stage. Thus, in this world, there was no spirit beast that could cultivate to become an itinerant immortal and condense an itinerant immortal mark. Since death is at hand, I'll show you. Little Silver spread his hands. It was very immoral to let people die with regrets. Since these two people were about to die, Little Silver felt that there was no harm in revealing his identity a little. In the next moment, old Taoist Kanglin and his junior brother Han saw the virtual image of a holy beast appear behind Little Silver. It was a white silver unicorn with its wings spread, ready to take flight. This virtual image had only been lit up for less than a second. By then, the old Taoist had already understood Little Silver's identity, and his eyes widened in disbelief. Little Silver increased the spiritual pressure once again. In an instant, the old Taoist and his junior brother Han both bled from their orifices, and under the powerful spiritual pressure that they couldn't resist, they died on the spot. This chapter was released normally today, and wasn't considered to be under update. Chapter 403. The fight looked very long, but it took Little Silver less than 5 minutes to finish it off. In the end, the gap in realms couldn't be made up for with magic treasures. This was actually a mistake that many modern cultivators made, who thought that as long as their magic treasures were powerful enough, they could force their way through a battle of higher realms. The truth was that if one's realm wasn't high enough, no matter how powerful a magic treasure was, it wouldn't be very effective. After smoothly getting rid of the two cultivators from the Demon Hunters Association, Little Silver sent a message in the group to explain that the matter had been resolved. Dharmaraja replied almost instantly, "So fast?" In front of the screen, Fong Xing couldn't help laughing. This was a game of thrashing noobs to begin with. This was a holy beast that could summon an intrinsic spirit field. Given that they were allowed to fight, Fong Xing felt that apart from Wang Ling, he was the only one in the group who had the strength to fight it. But the difference was that when he fought Little Silver, he had to use two supreme spells, the White Knight spell and Immortal mode, like he had against the Master of Immortal Mansion of Arrays. That was the only way he could fight Little Silver. Wang Ling just needed to maintain his normal state and fight as usual. Little Silver, remember to clean up the corpses. Also be careful when you do it in case it's a trick. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sent Little Silver a private message. Little Silver nodded and put his hands on his hips, his expression very relaxed. Puff, puff, Little Silver spat on the two corpses. Although this behavior looked quite uncivilized and wasn't recommended to imitate, the silver unicorn's phlegm contained a strong acid. This was a natural corpse-dissolving liquid, and any corpse below Little Silver's realm would dissolve in an instant. So for Little Silver, disposing of these two corpses was no trouble at all. Furthermore, there were no surveillance cameras around the construction site, so it could be said that the aftermath was perfect. Just as Little Silver was about to clap his hands and leave, police sirens suddenly rang out in the nearby streets. By the time Little Silver wanted to leave, it was already too late. Several police cars swiftly rushed into the construction site and surrounded him. More than 10 headlights shone on Little Silver, and he couldn't help raising his hand to block the light. It was too glaring. What was going on? Little Silver had never expected the police to actually notice this place. Before he made his move, he had already very carefully confirmed that there was no one nearby. A police captain got out of the police car, followed by a young man. The young man was wearing a tie and a suit. He looked like an office worker and was trembling behind the police. The sheriff patted the young man on the shoulder. "Don't be afraid. Tell me everything you saw." Little Silver instantly broke out in a cold sweat. He never thought that someone would actually see him fighting just now. This shouldn't be possible. However, if someone really saw the scene of him killing the two cultivators of the Demon Hunters Association, it would really be hard to explain. Little Silver raised his hands with an innocent expression. Police uncle, I didn't do anything. He knew that there were no surveillance cameras nearby. If this young man really saw anything, he just had to deny it. That's right. That's right. He had the right to remain silent. Nonsense. The young man pointed at Little Silver and roared, his eyes filled with extreme resentment. His voice was powerful and resonant, filled with righteous indignation. When Little Silver saw this scene, the song "Cold" instantly rang out in his heart. This young man's tone sounded too resolute, and it was likely that he didn't have any evidence. If that was really the case, it would be terrible. The sheriff, "Sir, don't get agitated, just speak slowly. I'm a construction engineer in charge of this site. When I passed by after work earlier, I noticed some movement here." The young man pushed up his glasses and pointed at Little Silver. "I went around to the back door of the construction site to take a look, and saw this person deliberately destroying the site. There's no way I was wrong. All the bricks and rubble nearby were floating in the air. And I also saw him." Little Silver had a bad feeling about this account. It was likely that this young man had really seen something. "I also saw him." The young man trembled with anger as he spoke. "I also saw him, spitting on the spot." Little Silver. After saying this, the young man's gloominess was finally relieved, and he heaved a big sigh of relief. "Although I saw him at the back door and could only see his back, there's no way I was wrong. He did spit. 2 big mouthfuls of phlegm on the ground." Little Silver. After the young man told him the details of Little Silver's crime, the sheriff's face also darkened slightly as he looked at Little Silver. "Miss, what are you doing at this construction site in the middle of the night?" Little Silver. "Cultivating. Can't I cultivate?" Because it indeed didn't make sense for him to appear at a construction site that had already been cordoned off in the middle of the night. "You're cultivating here in the middle of the night?" The sheriff. "But this isn't a reason for you to deliberately destroy someone else's construction site. Furthermore, you spat on the ground. You're such a beautiful girl, how can you be so uncivilized? Why did you spit?" Little Silver. "I was cultivating, and my cultivation went awry, so I spat, to get rid of the fire." "Can't I?" The surrounding police officers, as well as the young man who had testified, were all stunned. Look at this perfect answer, which was like a beautiful flower. There was actually no ***king flaw in it at all. The sheriff sucked in a cold breath and stared at Little Silver solemnly. "Miss, you spat and deliberately destroyed someone else's construction site. According to public security regulations, you need to be detained for 15 days. Please come with us." Little Silver. At 7 o'clock in the evening, Shanghai City's Anning District Cultivation Police Station. Little Silver was facing a police officer. His wrists were in handcuffs as he prepared to record his statement. After 10 minutes or so in the interrogation room, 2 police officers pushed open the door and entered. When the police little brother in charge of taking down the statement saw Little Silver, they looked at each other in dismay and both had stunned expressions on their faces. The corners of the police officer's mouth twitched, and he couldn't help cursing. "Why is it you again?" Little Silver hadn't expected to actually run into an acquaintance here. Furthermore, he had specially noted down this police little brother's name last time. It was Gao Tian, Officer Gao. Next was the normal interrogation process. The 2 police officers were in position, and the police officer in charge of questioning was the first to speak. "Name?" Little Silver. "I'm asking for his real name." On the side, Officer Gao couldn't help sweating. "He really is called Little Silver. He was here last time." Little Silver couldn't help sighing. "It's really convenient to have an acquaintance." The 2 police officers. The corners of Officer Gao's mouth twitched. "Don't try to get close to me. Hurry up and tell me. Why were you practicing on someone else's construction site?" Little Silver laughed in his heart and stared at Gao Tian. "I missed you, Officer Gao." Chapter 404. So when it was almost midnight that day, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal specially went to the police station to bail Little Silver out. Song Qingshu had become grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's steward after leaving Immortal Castle. He was parked at the gate in a black car. He actually knew more about what was going on in the police station than grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. That was because Song Qingshu's original leadership role at Immortal Castle had been as a liaison for all kinds of networks. Given that Little Silver had just been sent in, it was impossible for him to come out at this time. But Song Qingshu had used his connections to greet him. Although he had already left Immortal Castle, he had planted a lot of spies in various local organizations in Songhai City over the years, and even Immortal Castle didn't know about their existence. And most importantly, these people were completely trustworthy. All of them had received Song Qingshu's financial support and kindness in their most difficult times, and some of them had even been saved by him. So in essence, Song Qingshu wasn't a bad person, otherwise grenade-throwing Senior Immortal wouldn't have kept him by his side to work for him. When grenade-throwing Senior Immortal took Little Silver out of the police station, it just so happened to be 12 o'clock. The back door opened and Little Silver directly plunged into the car like a paralyzed guyu. Today was really 2F*** King tired. First of all, he had been inhumanely exchanged for 4,000 milliliters of holy beast blood with 20 crispy noodle snacks. On his way home, he had been targeted by people from the Demon Hunters Association, and then he had been brought to the police station to testify against him. How could so much have happened in just one day? Little Silver lay on the armchair in the back of the car, puzzled no matter how he thought about it. He had discovered a very serious problem. It would have been fine if he didn't go out, but once he did, he would suffer a calamity. Furthermore, if he ended up in a hospital, it would be the police station. I must have offended the Tai Sui. Little Silver suddenly sat up straight and shook his head bitterly as he loudly vented his depression. In the front seat, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal almost spat blood when he heard this. Offended the Tai Sui? How could the Tai Sui be as old as you? By the way, is Senior Immortal very free every day? Little Silver asked as he rested his head on his pillow. In the driver's seat, Song Qingshu almost stepped on the brakes when he heard the question. Because he hadn't participated in the operation to wipe out Immortal Mansion. He actually didn't know Little Silver's true identity, but he had a feeling that Little Silver wasn't just a distant relative of grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. At least in the current cultivation circle, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was so famous that basically no one would dare ask him such an impolite question. Moreover, the term distant relative was actually quite vague. Thus, Song Qingshu had always been suspicious of Little Silver's true identity, but he just didn't dare say it out loud. Hearing Little Silver's question, the corners of grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's mouth couldn't help twitching. Brother Little Silver, why do you say that? Little Silver, look, every time something happens to me, you're the first to rush to the scene. And I realize that you seem to care a lot about me. When I came out of the police station, I heard people talking about whether you were my father. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal took a deep breath. Brother Ling entrusted this to me. Otherwise, he wouldn't be willing to get involved in this mess. Who would go to the police station every day for no reason? Little Silver was startled. Master? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal turned his expressionless face to look at Little Silver with a weary expression. Brother Ling thinks that Brother Little Silver, you're inexperienced, and sometimes it's easy for your words and actions to cause misunderstandings. Especially after you enter the police station, Brother Little Silver should try not to speak if you can. Little Silver was puzzled. Why? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal? Think about it, if you say the wrong thing at the police station, it's very easy for the police to assume that you're drunk or on drugs, and they might drag you in for a blood test. There's such a thing? When grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said this, Little Silver instantly understood the seriousness of the matter. If he really was dragged in for a blood test and was found to be the blood of a holy beast, then everything would be over. Thus, there was a period of silence in the car after that, and both grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Little Silver were well aware of what was going on. Only Song Qingshu had a stupefied look on his face. How did this have something to do with Senior Ling again? However, this further affirmed Song Qingshu's attitude toward Little Silver. To be related to Senior Ling, this brother Little Silver's identity definitely wasn't simple. As Song Qingshu drove the car to the villa, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal opened his mouth again. Finish what Senior Ling asked you to do as soon as possible. Little Silver, Little Silver knew that grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was referring to the blood test. He still owed Master 6,000 milliliters of holy beast blood. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, when your body is damaged, remember to eat this crispy noodle snack pack. It'll be more effective this way. Little Silver scratched his head. What do you mean? Literally. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sighed. You'll know when you eat it. This is something Senior Ling gave you. Of course, if you're willing to give me a pack, I have no objections. Little Silver fell into deep thought at these words. He recalled what that muscular brother Pen had said to him at the Wang family's villa. Sometimes, a lot of things could be said to be true. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had been doing very well in the cultivation circle all these years, and had seen all kinds of treasures. Was it worth being so attached to a crispy noodle snack pack? Could it be that Master's crispy noodle snack was really miraculous? Little Silver's attitude started to change from complete disbelief to skepticism. You want crispy noodle snacks? Little Silver patted Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal on the shoulder and chuckled. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal trembled all over. Little Silver, how about this? I can give you a pack. After all, it's actually kind of embarrassing to stay at Senior Immortal's place all this time. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, really? Of course, but I have a small request. Little Silver said, Senior Immortal, please help me brew a pot of Immortal Mountain Snow Lotus tonight. It's best if it's the 600-year-old kind. Remember to pour the spirit water in after it's boiled and count to 233 seconds, then strain the tea out. That's when the tea is the most fragrant. Song Qingshu broke out in a sweat. 600-year-old Immortal Mountain Snow Lotus. This was the most expensive tea in Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's villa and was worth a fortune. Normally, even Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal wouldn't bear to drink it. But contrary to Song Qingshu's expectations, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal actually grit his teeth and agreed. All right. Little Silver stretched out his legs and crossed them toward the front seat, looking very relaxed. Senior Immortal, I'll have to trouble you to give me a shoulder massage tonight? The corners of Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's mouth twitched. All right, his voice was trembling. Song Qingshu was speechless. How was this a distant relative? It was more like raising a big boss. Little Silver hadn't expected Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal to actually agree so readily. It suddenly occurred to him that he hadn't taken a bath in a long time. For a holy beast like him to bathe, there was no cleansing effect in his human form. He had to change back to his beast form. Seeing that Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was so straightforward, Little Silver didn't stand on ceremony at all. Lastly, when I take a shower tonight, Senior Immortal, please brush my fur. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Song Qingshu was also stunned. Hair? Where is the hair?